Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? Oh, it's welcome back, everybody. It's been a long time. It's been a minute. Had to take a little bit of a break, but now we're back doing our lives. And I did something already to mess it up. What have I done? I've done something already, but it's all right. And my screen is not showing the way I wanted to see. It makes it easier for me. And there's a. Do I not have it where people can do comments or something? Because I wasn't able to change. All right, but we are back live. We are back live. For some reason, it's not as big on my screen as I would like for it to be. I think it's something that I did. I'm quite positive it's something that I did. Oh, now this is just straight tripping. Bonjour, mon ami. It's about as far as we're going to go with the French. But welcome back, everybody. I hope everybody had a great holiday season. Whatever you do during the holidays, see family, you off work, whatever it is, however you enjoy your time. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves. I thoroughly enjoyed myself being away for a while. Moved. See what else we do. Hell, we moved. We got a lot done, and then we went on another little vacation. So got a lot done. My podcasting here is tripping because the screen is crazy. I want to recycle, but I hope it won't cancel it out if I do that. Just to make it, because it's all funky. Let me see. Changes may not be saved. There we go. That's how the screen's supposed to show. It was looking kind of janky on my side. Yeah. We almost there. We just gonna say I'm rusty since it's been about a month. There we go. I couldn't get everybody's comments to show up on the screen, so that Facebook people can see YouTube people comments. But yeah, it's been about a month. It's been about a month. It's been a month. Who's having problems hearing me? Let me see. Let me check. Let me make sure my volume is all the way up. I haven't done this in a minute, so some of my settings may have been maybe have changed. But I believe my microphone is turned up as loud as it can go. Everybody else is saying they hear me just fine. Your Bluetooth speaker broken. Ah. So did everybody have a good time, Frank? Good little holiday season? Whatever that you do, and enjoy yourself. Was all that holiday spirit bothering you? Because I hope you're having a good time, because I don't want none of y'all going to hell. I hope y'all was pious during your holiday. Made you some share ride money. Yeah, that's what's up, Jay. Hey, making some good money. Can't go wrong. Getting out there and getting a little money in your system. Can't blame you for that one. So, as most of you guys know, Angelina and myself, we moved from one side of town to the other side of town. So we had to do a lot to get the move, get that taken care of. Then like the day after we moved, I can't figure it out. I don't see my volume is up on my mic, so I don't know what's going on, my guy. So the day after we moved, we got on the road. We was out of town for much of the time. Oh damn, JJ. Sorry to hear that, man. Why is my laptop tripping? Okay. My condolences, Jay, that you have to deal with that. That's what you're dealing with right now. So I think everybody, no matter what they religious beliefs are, will send you their condolences to that one, my guy. So I'm just trying to get I'm a little rusty at this. It's been a minute, so I'm a little rusty. I'm so rusty, I never even turned TikTok on. Not that I really care too much about TikTok being on. But sometimes we get some of our best people coming on from TikTok. So I know I've belabored the point for a while here. Haven't been talking about, I just miss y'all, man. I miss y'all. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. But now we back. Now we back on the things. So our conversation today is about the fact of no one is in heaven or hell, and heaven and hell does not exist at all. Is often quite comforting to people who believe in these religions to say to themselves that, oh, my father, my mother, my dog, my cat, my children, my grandparents, that everybody that they know and love has made it to heaven, and everybody's in heaven. It's a comforting thought for most people, for most of the people who believe in these religions. Yet, according to the Bible itself, none of these people, none of the people that they claim are in heaven and hell as far as modern day. The only people who ever went to heaven was Enoch and Elijah. And then, according to the story, Jesus and the thieves on the cross. That's it. Now, some make the argument that Jesus emptied out Abaddon and Abraham's bosom. And if that's the case, then only people from 1st century and further back, and only Jewish people actually from 1st century and further back, are in heaven. But beyond that, no one currently who has died since heaven and hell. I'm probably going to use this again multiple times, but we know that. Well, before I go there, I did not mean to hit that. Before I go there, we understand that there is a difference between what the Old Testament says is what happens after death and what the New Testament is saying what happens after death. According to the Old Testament, you just go into Sheol. That's it. Whether you were a good person, bad person, whether you followed the tenets didn't follow the tenets, it doesn't matter. You're going to Sheol. Sheol is just a dark, gloomy kind of place. And that's something that you don't even hear until the middle of the Old Testament. Prior to that, in the Old Testament, you just died. It didn't say anything about what happens after death with Adam, Eve, Seth, Cain, Abel. I guess is Cain in hell? Is Abel in heaven, or is he in hell? Right? It doesn't say anything. It doesn't tell you anything about their deaths and what happens to them after death. You can't find it in none of the stories in Genesis of a heaven or hell. Even a Sheol doesn't even exist in the Old Testament, in the Genesis narrative. So we don't have any of this nonsense. You just die. But then people, as the Jewish religion, Judaism started being more exposed to other religions by being conquered by them. They came from the Canaanites, and then they were conquered by the, in the Assyrian, the Akkadian, Babylonian religions. They didn't have a afterlife kind of scenario. The Egyptians did have an afterlife scenario. So, you go into the field of reeds, and the field of reeds is not some big special place either. You make it through the book of the dead and you have your spell. The field of reeds, you just over there with Osiris, you pretty much live in a similar life that you lived on earth. So it's not like the Egyptian afterlife was something special, right? It was about the same. All right. So there was nothing special about it. It's not until you get into the time frame of the Persians being over the Israelite people that this idea through Zoroastrian teaching starts to teach people that there is this afterlife of heaven and hell. There's this ultimate good, ultimate bad. Yeah, the Greeks had their Hades, but this comes after the Persians. But so the Persians teaches their heaven and hells, right? Their ultimate good, ultimate bad, Ahura Mazda versus Agdra Menya. So from the Zoroastrians, the Bible incorporates, the Old Testament Judaism incorporates Sheol, a place, a gloomy, dark place where you just go. And then it's after they then conquered by the Greeks into the Romans, then there becomes these ideas of a better versions of different places in Hades. All of it is Hades. But within Hades, there's the Elysium. That's the good spot. And then there's Tartarus. That's the bad spot. And then there's a few other spots. Like if a mother dies during childbirth, she had a special place that she went. So there's a special place for her. If depending on how you died, you may go to a different place. So we have these differences that they then start learning from the Greeks. So by the time we get into the Romans, not only do we have the new concept of a good God and a bad devil, but we also have the concept of a heaven and a hell, and then a judgment day develops after that. Sorry, didn't mean to yawn. I don't know why that came out. Oh, need some coffee. That's fine. So you have these different teachings so heaven and hell is a developed concept. It's not something that you find just right off the bat in your Bible. And then what people do is they retell the stories. They add into the older stories these concepts of heaven and hell, right? So it's like you got Saul calling up Samuel with a necromancer. Samuel never says anything to Saul. He just cusses at him. It's like, hey, why'd you bring up my soul? You ain't supposed to be doing this. This is jacked up. But he never says like, yeah, man, I was chilling in heaven and you brought me out of this, or I was thank you for calling me up because I was in hell and everything. He says nothing of it. Out of every resurrection that happens in the Bible, no one ever says anything about the condition that they was in. What's his name? Jesus resurrected Lazarus. Lazarus didn't come back and be like, man, damn, I was chilling in heaven, having a good old time, and you went and put me back in a body. I got to start over again. No, none of those things happen. Or, oh, thank you. Because I was languishing away in hell. So thank you for bringing me at least back to earth so I may be able to figure this shit out. Right. But nothing happens. The Bible, even for believers, they should expect that because the Bible tells them that the dead know nothing. Right. The dead doesn't know anything. The dead is just there. Let's see. I'm gonna see some quick. I don't like how my screen is little. To me, like I view my screen as small. It's irritating. I don't know what setting I did to do that. Anyway, I raised a question. Explain to us what happens when you pass away. Where do you go? Are you born back to the earth after a certain time? What are your sources? Proverbs, Kings, James Version 5. Trust the Lord with all thine heart and learn and lean not to thine own understanding. Well, whose understanding you're leaning on? Because if anybody claims that they know exactly what happens after you die, then they are guessing and they are lying. Because here's the thing, I don't know what happens after you die. I can tell you what happens to your body. The energy of your body is going to transmute back into the earth. It's going to become another energy source, another form of energy. That's it. As far as what happens to your consciousness, I don't know. And neither does anybody else. Nobody knows, which I don't need a source for that. The source for I don't know is the fact that you don't know. And I'm good with that. The fact that a person needs to have an answer is problematic. That you will willing to believe something, invent something, accept some teachings of some old dead people from 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, and not even recognize how things have changed in their own teaching. You got, like I just said, you go back to 700 BCE, ain't no Israelite talking about going to heaven and hell. They nothing. Sheol, that's it. And then you fast forward into the 500s, all of a sudden, oh, well, there might be there's Abraham's bosom, and then there's Abaddon. You get into the first century, they still got Abraham's bosom and Abaddon, but then they starting to add in heaven. And then you get into around second century, late first century, second century, and you still got Abraham's bosom, Abaddon, but now you got heaven on Judgment Day, and you got the lake of fire, which is hell. If you can't see the progression of how these things materialize, then you are just believing something that somebody is teaching you today, not anything that you actually know of. And no one has been to heaven, come back with some proof. Nobody's been to hell, come back with some proof. A whole bunch of people think they have, but ain't nobody been there. So no. I like that. And what is your source? Because you thought that I was going to answer something. You tried to preset my answer to be reincarnation. That's what the trick is. He tried to preset my answer to be reincarnation. Nah, bro, you can't preset my answers. Now it's kind of crazy. Me and that gentleman, I think Yah Israel, we have been actually agreeing on a lot of points on my last few videos over the last couple of days. It's a little scary. We've actually had some agreements on some things. Oh, I've been here too. So and by the way, this is TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube's over there. That's why I read out the questions. There's only one legit place in the Bible regarding hell, a hell place, and that is Gehenna. But it wasn't hell. It was a place where old types of things were burned. Right. So it's like a little trash. I mean, it's a little place where there's some. It's ghetto. It's trashy. People like to say it's a trash dump. It's not necessarily a trash dump. It's just like a rough. Like if you went to a rough neighborhood, a rough place, then you see like everything's kind of jacked up and there is a lot of trash. And people did burn trash, but that's like where the low life is, so to speak. But Gehenna is the valley outside of Jerusalem. Been there a couple times. So, I've been to hell and back a few times. Little Rio Roscoe here in his feelings. You were never a Christian. You only express false religions. Yeah, because you know what my emotional mental state was during all those years of my life. You embodied me and knew exactly where my heart was and where my mind was during that time frame. Roscoe demon possessed me to be able to know what my intents were, my thoughts, my feelings, my deepest emotions, the recesses of my mind. Roscoe knew those things. And they kill me with that bullshit because if the Bible says that if you ever become a child of God, you can never be taken out of the palm of hand of God. Man, whatever. If I wrote a book and I would say that. If I wrote a Bible, I'd say that too. Good question. What makes you think heaven and hell don't exist? Well, one, there's no evidence of a actual heaven or hell. There is just evidence of our reality. There is evidence that we can create images in our mind and places and world and universes in our mind. We know that we can do that. But as far as there may be other dimensional planes, other dimensions, and there are definitely other galaxies and things of that nature. But a specific place that some God comes and brings about some judgment, and you go there, there's no evidence of that. And the other biggest part is that there's no evidence that the God of the Bible exists. So if the evidence that and there's actually more evidence against the God of the Bible, then if that God doesn't exist, then the place that is attributed to that God cannot exist either. So if God of the Bible, Yahweh, don't exist, then the place that he abides in and is supposed to allow for the judgment to be after the judgment, post-judgment, after party, then that God, that place don't exist either. So no, people believe in heaven and hell. They believe in this God based on faith. They don't believe in this. It's all belief. It's all faith. It has nothing to do with anything in reality. So yeah. So this God is supposed to be living up in the sky, slightly above the firmament. And we've been past the firmament. We've sent items past the firmament. Get what? No God. Get what? And he's inconsistent. Oh, look at down now. They building a tower, and if they work together and they build a tower, then there's nothing they can't do there won't be nothing they can do. They can't do. So let me destroy the tower and mix up the language. Well, I ain't gonna destroy the tower. Let me mix up their languages. And so they can never build a tower. But then he didn't get pissed when we built, the Empire State Building was built. Didn't get pissed when space station was put up there. Didn't get pissed at the Arabs when they built that big tall ass building that they got now that's stretching up into the clouds. Inconsistent. No, I don't believe God exists. The God of the Bible does not exist. The God of none of these active religions actually exists. You got to prove it. And within your book, your gods are always inconsistent as hell and seems to change with every culture, especially your doctrine always changes with every culture. Can't talk and drink at the same time. Learn that lesson. Curate, you want to come on because you're asking a lot of good questions, but I'd rather talk to a person. So, and this is a good question. So you believe this world exists for no reason? No. The reason for the world's existence is its existence. We do not have to have a reason. Does Saturn have to have a reason to exist? Does the Andromeda Galaxy have to have a reason to exist? Not having a creator doesn't mean that there is no purpose for something. All things in the universe have a purpose, meaning that their purpose is whatever they're doing. Now, being conscious beings, we decide what our purpose is. the sun's purpose is to burn fuel. It does it, and it does a damn good job of it. Does it? Is it conscious though? Can it change and say, "Well, I don't feel like burning today"? No. So, what has been created and has no reason? To establish reason, you have to have a conscious being in order to have reason. What I'm saying is, even without a conscious being, with no creator, no conscious being, Earth just exists. It will still exist. The universe itself has existed for as and understand the universe. There's a difference between our known universe and the universe. Our known universe is just the universe that we acknowledge, that we can see, that we know of, that expanded, that is still expanding. But that expansion is happening within a greater field of mass, so to speak. And we don't know how big that is, and we don't know where that came from. And we don't know if it's and it's most likely a repetitive cycle of creation and destruction. You don't have to have a designer for that. The design theory, you have to prove a designer first in order to prove your little design theory. Because everything in this universe, the majority of things in this universe is without life, is chaotic. So this whole perfect divine design universe is bullshit. The earth is built to kill us, right? It's built to completely kill us. There's very little space on this planet that we are born naturally to live in. And within that space that we are born naturally to live in, half the shit is trying to kill us. And see, why is all this built by who? Ain't nobody, no person, no conscious mind built Earth. Earth is just a natural phenomenon. And no matter what the probability is, since it exists, it is the 1 in whatever trillion in probability. Okay, you writing too much. I'd rather you just come on because I can't have a conversation with text. A continuous conversation with text. That doesn't work. You know, that just doesn't work. But we're talking about heaven and hell. And I mean, I guess you can get into the whole, you got to be able to prove the damn creator in order for heaven and hell to work. Right. So, but you got to be able to prove this creator. Without the proof, I mean, who's to say Allah's heaven and hell is not the real one? Who's to say that you go through the process of reincarnation over and over again until you reach nirvana? They are just as valid as the Christian, the Judeo-Christian heaven and hell. They're just as valid. Why is this so big? Oh, let me open the doors of the church, by the way. Give me 1 second here. Hold on for that, Conan. Right. Energy doesn't have a creator. Energy doesn't need a creator. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. I pressed it. I guess Conan didn't want to. Oh, I guess it must have been an accident. It's okay. It happens. Heaven and hell are intrinsically African concepts. Oh my gosh. Why do okay, black people, stop trying to claim every goddamn thing and everything that ever existed, every thought process. Heaven and hell is not is not intrinsically an African concept. first of all, stop putting Africa as one damn place as far as it being Kemetic. Africa is the largest, it's huge as hell. The whole United States will fit in Africa. That's like saying whatever people think in New York is what everybody across the whole America think. So stop putting everybody in Africa. Yeah, so stop making Africa this. Stop making it small. And heaven and hell is not an African concept, right? There has been the primary heaven and hell that people derive today. It comes from the Zoroastrian, which is not Africa at all. It's Mesopotamia. It's Iranian. It's Persian, right? So this, the reason why that irritates me, it irritates me on the side of black people, white people, Asian people, anybody people. Why do we always try to create these damn separations between ourselves? And then it's not like we're making it better by trying to black everything. You know, everything got whitewashed. Y'all can't hear me? Kevin saying I can't hear you. Let's see here. As far as my microphone, Kevin, it's saying it's working. But stop doing that. No, Hermeticism does not acknowledge that. Neither does Freemasonry. I don't know about Kabbalah. Let's see if Conan works. Conan.
Hi, how are you?
Doing all right.
I've been following most of you. I love your how do I put it? Your narratives. I like them.
Thank you.
Amen. But there are scenarios where I beg to differ. But generally, I love the narrative and the thought of thinking.
Cool. So do you think there's a heaven and hell? Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I think like I said, I like the free way of thinking where like it's open source and stuff like that. But you cannot I'll give you an example of you keep saying you don't believe in the existence of a God or something. How can I'm into IT computers. If I develop a program or make a system, the system cannot know much about me other than what I have programmed or given it to know about myself. So everything you know about God is what God has made known to you or to us men. So I mean, we want to prove. How can a program prove who its creator is or existence of a creator, but other than what it was given to understand and to know about the creator? That's how I understand this whole thing.
Okay, so
because really there are certain things in life that are supernatural. I'm sure you've seen things that.
Hold on, wait, stop, Conan, because you're droning on to multiple things here. Okay, so first, and I'm gonna try to use your example, even though I don't like it, but I'm gonna try to use your example. All right, so as a computer programmer, when you write a software, you write a code, do you not identify yourself as the creator of it?
If you want, you could lie to that program to say
no.
I'm Simon.
No. Do you acknowledge that you are the creator of that program? Because otherwise somebody else could claim authorship, right? Ownership.
Yes.
Right. So if you create some code or you write a new system, you're going to put your name on it in order for it to protect it so that nobody else can claim it. So if that's the case, this God, whose name is Yahweh, who nobody ever heard of until around what 2000 BCE at best. Yet there were many gods prior to him laying claim to his work. So how is it that this God is the one who gets the credit when we had Anu, we had Ra, you got Quetzalcoatl, you got all these other gods. You got Brahma, who was older than Yahweh. So should not those be the creator gods then?
Okay, let me first tell you my, let me say, belief, because it is merely believing without seeing. My belief is there's a Jehovah up there, and the definition of a god is a deity through which takes or presents my requests or my issues to Jehovah, because I do believe there are many gods. That I believe.
Okay.
And yes, I don't believe, but my God is specific to me because I believe in that God and I see results in because I don't think we choose gods, but gods choose us. Something like that.
Well, that's new.
My belief. So, sorry.
That's new to me.
That's new.
Yeah, that gods choose you. Wait a minute, you saying? Wait a minute.
Yes.
You said that the gods choose you, right?
Gods choose us. Yes. Okay. By gods choose us. I believe. For example, we could even say Moses was a god. If we come to the Bible, in my own context and view, because this is someone who was representing a certain people, and he was a mediator between Jehovah or Yahweh and these other people.
So
that's my beliefs. I believe. So
you believe that anybody and anything can be a god? I mean, I can just make up a god. I can be a god. I can start being a god.
Yes.
And then if people choose me to be their god, then I'm their god.
Yes.
That's not on tier with these religious gods of old. Like, everybody can't be a god. Everybody is not a god.
But what I'm talking about is biblical.
How so? How is it biblical? Where does it say that everybody's a god? And I think I know you're gonna go. And that ain't talking about everybody.
Let's look at John 10, verse 10.
Let's see. Let me find it real quick. All right, so John 10. So this is Jesus, the good shepherd. The thief that comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it more abundantly. So Jesus said to them, verily, verily, I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep do not listen to them. I am the gate. Whosoever enters by me will be saved, and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, which is, they always apply that to the devil, but it ain't talking about the devil. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. So what's your point here? I don't see how that indicates the godness.
Let me, I might
Gave me the wrong one.
Just open my Bible. Sorry, I might have. But the verse I'm talking about is a verse where Jesus says, he actually says, okay, let me just check that verse. I'm lost. But it's about Jesus saying he chose, he's the one who chose us other than, and we cannot choose ourselves, but Jesus chose us, or something like that. So what I'm trying to say is these deities actually choose to say, for example, okay, let's
wait a minute. Are you talking about like how Jesus said, I came for the Israelites? So that is him choosing just the Israelites?
Matthew 15, verse 21. Yes. That's another part.
Okay, but that's just Jesus. Okay, but Jesus ain't God. And that's just Jesus. And even if he was, I mean, let me put it like this. You are absolutely right. If you go by the Bible and you look at some of the things that are said, like in the Old Testament, when El Elyon gives out the portions to the other B'nai Elohim, he tells them, you go, you over here and you get these people and you get those, well, you get this land, you get that land, and Yahweh got the people. So there is a biblical thought process that you can say that gods choose the people that they're going to rule over, and everybody got their own different gods, and they are all part of the B'nai Elohim. All right. So granted, the book says that, but then you still have to prove that any of those gods exist, is my point. Just because the book says it doesn't mean that that's the truth.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was trying to look at some popular literature. The Bible is a popular. I know the Bible was distorted. I know 325 AD, stuff like that. I know Constantine, blah blah. I know there's a lot that was taken out and a lot that was put in the Bible.
No,
but
no.
What are you saying?
In 325, the Bible was not canonized. In 325, the only thing that happened is that they decided that they decided the Trinity, and they decided that everybody in the Rome was going to worship Easter at the same time, and they established more of an authority within. They gave Christianity more Roman authority. It is not until around 369 that the Bible was canonized. And when it was canonized, there were no books taken out. They just never included them into what became the normal canon for most people.
No, but yes, yeah, but at that time, obviously, they decided on the text and books that they were going to follow.
No, for 29, 30 years, Athanasius, with his letter to tell the Roman Christians when to celebrate Easter, he listed what books that he thought should be the canon. Athanasius did this for about 30 years before it was actually canonized. So from 325, for 30 years continuously, he suggested the books, but the books weren't canonized until later after that. This is why, this is why the Ethiopian Bible had all those other books in them, because 5 years later, when Ethiopia becomes Christian, the Christian that Frumentius, who was part of Athanasius' district, when he went to Ethiopia, he was able to use any books that he wanted to use because there was no canon yet. At least the canon that you're familiar with. Marcion created a canon in the early 2nd century.
Well, okay, that much I will not debate. I'm not an expert on it. But what I do know is clearly the Bible that we're reading right now has had a lot of altercations and actually texts taken out and stuff like that. Even the actual books themselves are not original as they were from the time they were gotten from, wherever they were gotten. these mountains and the areas. But my point is from the parts that are in the Bible. It is God that, okay, Jesus went around choosing his disciples. And he actually even said in Matthew 21, verse 15, I only came for the lost sheep of Israel. All these, even Moses himself was claiming that his mission was based on the Israelites. My belief actually of where Eden is, people, that's why it will never be found. I believe Eden is a people. Wait.
Come on, man.
You need to get the concept.
I gotta hear this one. I gotta hear this one. How is Eden a people? I gotta hear this. Come on. I ain't never heard that before.
Yes. Eden is yes, here the whole I hadn't finished saying what I wanted to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I understand. Okay, my understanding of the literature is that Eden is okay, the people who were chosen by God at that time. For example, let's say Israelites. These are the people in the areas in which they were. These are the people who were said to be in Eden, as in the people who knew God, or who knew there's a God and knew how to pray, and they were not barbaric, or they did not live outside of the law. For example, okay, before the Jews the Jews were dispersed, Jews were almost everywhere. From not across the world, but in the Middle East and North Africa.
I need you to be concise, because I'm getting a whole lot of words with no connection whatsoever, and you're all over the place. How is Eden people? Because according to this book, the only thing it says about Eden is that a garden was.
I was not saying I'm not finished. I was saying.
Okay, I can't let you drone on for 10-15 minutes. That's not going to work. So I need clear, concise statements. How is Eden a people?
I had not, like, that statement was not finished. I had not finished the statement. I was saying the people who were following God. Okay, let me give an example. Adam had people who were actually who he was not the first person on earth. Now, this Eden, obviously there are certain areas where people were praying and knew God and followed God through and were led by Adam. And Adam was like the Jesus of that time, or the Messiah of that time. So these people could live amongst, let me say, pagans, but these are the people who knew that there's a God who needed to pray.
Okay, so that doesn't actually.
An example is this.
No, I need you to say it and stop trying to say it, man, because you.
I'm saying it, but I'm trying to find a better way.
You're saying, but you're going forever. You're not. You're just droning on and on and on. I can't do that. But according to.
I want to give an example from the time of Adam.
No, you can't give an example from the time of Adam, because the Bible says that the first time that people started calling on the name of the Lord, which is worship, is to worship this God, is when Seth was born. So Adam wasn't calling upon the name of this God. So Adam wasn't worshiping this God. So he wasn't leading people in prayers and things of that nature, according to what the Bible says.
People only started to pray to God when? Which verse is that?
In Seth, when Seth, after Seth, and it started going into Seth lineage, it says that man began to call upon the name of the Lord. It should be like Genesis 5. Should be like Genesis 5.
No, I don't think.
The Bible doesn't say anything about Adam.
Genesis 5 what?
It doesn't say anything about Adam leading people in prayer. Or leading people, period. Adam, it doesn't talk about Adam leading anybody.
So you believe Adam was the first person on earth?
Oh, hell no, I don't. Why would I think? I don't believe in this Bible at all.
So, wow, okay.
Did you not know that? You didn't know I didn't believe in his Bible?
But I thought to an extent,
Yo.
you believe there's some stuff that was just twisted and all, but there's an element of truth.
No, the Bible has the only elements of truth that the Bible has in it is a few moral things that are okay, and a few kings and places that existed. This is about it. Beyond that, there ain't nothing else truthful about this book.
Okay, now I understand why. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Then, geez, there's nothing I will say that will, because my reference is the Bible. What else can I reference?
You can reference archaeology. You can reference actual history. You can reference geological studies. There's many things that you can reference.
But archaeology will never tell us what happened 6,000 years ago. It will.
Yes, it does. That's how we know what happened for the most part 6,000 years ago. And there are some narratives, but 6,000 years ago there's no narratives. But 6,000 years ago, archaeology shows that there were civilizations all around the planet 6,000 years ago. That people were in existence in the Americas.
Yeah, but how do we know how they lived exactly? What stories that happened? We can't. We can only see evidence of civilizations.
Okay, but yeah, some of that evidence does tell us how they were living. But now, does it give us a narrative? The people who wrote the Bible weren't writing it 6,000 years ago. You do realize that, right?
Yeah. Well,
so these are people in and around 700 BCE to around 800, 900 BCE to 200 BCE. These are the ones telling you what happened 5,000 years prior to them living. And you're just accepting it. Oh, and by the way, it's Genesis 4, verse 26, where it says, to Seth also was born, and he named him Enoch. And at that time, people began to invoke the name of the Lord. So Adam, it was in Seth when people started start worshiping this God. But yeah, so
what verse?
Genesis 4, verse 6. And but look, I try to give people 20-minute limits, and we have went past that. And there's a few other people want to get on because I got to do that so that I'm not on here for 4 hours.
Genesis 4 verse 6 does not even say what you're saying. I'm sorry. I think you might have misquoted.
I said 26.
People begin then to call on the name of the Lord does not mean we're not calling before. Maybe something happened and they stopped.
So
and they started again.
So words don't mean what their words mean.
Not saying.
What does it mean to begin something?
Not.
If something has never been spoken of before, and then you begin to do something. If you left whatever country you're from and you begin to live in America, did you live in America before, or did you begin when you began? Words mean words.
Wow. So you believe Adam was talking to God and he was not praying to God.
If God is walking around in the garden, then what do I need to pray to him for? That's like what I need. If my wife is in the house with me, why do I need to call her? She right there. No, hey baby, how you doing? Got a question for you.
So you're saying you think Garden of Eden was a place where God was there and Adam was, they could see each other and they could walk together, eat together.
According to the story, that's what the story says. God walking in the cool of the day. God standing there with Adam and brought all the animals to him to see what he would call them. God made him go to sleep and snatched half his body and made a woman. God came and approached them and asked them, what have they done? God gave them glory. Yes, that's what the book says, man. Come on now. But look, I try to give people only 20 minutes. We're past that time frame. I got other people.
Okay.
All right.
Let me hear others.
Yeah, and if I get into a dead zone, just come back, okay?
Okay, cool.
All right. Oh. I know I saw Tam.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Was it Tamu Truth?
Yeah, Tamu. Yeah, that's just my new name. So you're a pastor, right?
Hell no, man. No, I'm not a pastor.
You come back, you know a lot, but it's good when you know a lot, I mean, I like people who know that, but honestly, as for me, I believe that everything is a God, Because
everything is a God?
If the white man can make my God and lie to me, if they can go around the world and unaliving people, steal their literature and compile it into a Bible and deceive me and my ancestor, I can also make some God for myself. What do you think about
that? This microphone is a God. You're right.
All right. Anyway, I've been telling people that my woman vagina is a God, and they say I'm a madman.
No, you're not mad about that one. I ain't mad at you. You're not a madman, and because I mean the Poom Poom is undefeated.
No, the Poom Poom. No, honestly, I tell them that the Poom Poom is one of my God, and everybody will come there and say, "Hey, you are a madman." Well, honestly, I'm in Jamaica, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was a Christian for I was 3, and they would beat me to go to church, right? A lot of beating me and my 5 brothers, right?
Right.
So I started reading 7 years. I mean, African spirituality, science and Obia, voodoo. But when I realized that the Bible came, the Genesis, they take Genesis from a book by the name of the Great Book of Ramadan, right? It's a Middle Eastern mysticism book, right? I realized that, they take from the Tree Initiate, they take some from Confucius, the Chinese historian, they take some of the Bible from the Kabbalah, is what I'm saying, and the magic, and they take some. So I realized that the Bible was written. I can't trust the book.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And reading what Constantine does, and how they create the Serapis, and when Alexander the Great came to Egypt, how we analyze all the Egyptian priests introduced to enroll in the Egyptian mystery. I realized that, honestly, even my church people, I don't go to church anymore. Backslide 20 years ago. They started to see me on the road and say, "Hey, I heard that you're serving another God, blah, 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 blah." But But honestly, the Bible is real. And the Bible was put together to divide and conquer melanin people for me. And they stole a lot of things from the Egyptian mystery, from the 42 book of Hermes, the 42 ammunition. No, tell me now, how can Moses be adopted now by an Egyptian king and don't learn and be and grown by them? Moses was an Ixas. No, as far as I can say, right? Moses was from the sea people. They call him the Ixas who came down trying to invade Egypt. Then Ramesses II had to beat the hell out of them.
Well, wait, Ramses the third. But
the third. Sorry.
You not put a whole lot of time. Moses is a compilation of multiple people. So you do have the story of Asarphus, who went up to he started a leper colony up in Goshen and then asked the Hyksos to come help him. But that was after the Hyksos had already been kicked out. And he did change his name to Moses. And they did add in the story of Sargon and how he was born by being floated down the river and then picked up by the king's baker. And then he became part of the king's court.
So you're talking from the Greek pantheon, right? From the Greek story.
No, actually, that's the Akkadian story and the Egyptian story.
Okay, so where you find the Akkadian story?
You can find it in it's written in cuneiform. It's the Enuma Elish. Wait. Sorry. Wait. No. The Akkadian story about Sargon, that's just written on tablets when they excavated places like Nineveh and Ur. So when those places got excavated, they found the stories on tablets that predate the writing of Exodus and the Bible itself about Sargon.
Thanks for teaching me. I learned something today.
Yeah,
I know you know your shit, man.
The Enuma Elish is going to give you your earlier versions of Utnapishtim and Zuasudra, who were Noah characters, where the stories of Noah were coming from. And it also give you the Enuma Elish is going to give you some of your Genesis story about.
I got that home to you.
Yeah, you get some of that stuff from them too. So, but yeah, this Bible is a hodgepodge stolen from so many different cultures.
I don't trust the book. I don't like the book. You see, the book have me not fucking for like 20 years, dude.
Welcome to the family.
When the pastors were fucking and the church brother were eating pussy and taking the other man wives away, you see what I'm saying? Honestly, 55 now, my first child is 6 years old because of Christianity. Dude, my dick don't even have any miles on it, dude. I'm not ashamed. No miles because of Christianity and the corruption of them. Don't cut me off. I'm serious. I don't like Christianity, dude. I was like, just be dude. I'm telling you, dude. When I realized that the Bible was so real, I said, damn, what did I do with my life? You know?
So you ain't put no miles on it because of Christianity.
There's no miles, dude. I'm telling you. Because of Christianity, the thing is not growing. I got a problem with the girl said, hey man, the thing is not long enough to ever use.
And then you 55 with a 6-year-old.
I'm sorry, man. I'm shouldn't be going to come in on your show and telling you bullshit, but I'm telling you, dude, I like Christianity.
Oh, it's fine.
Dude, I'm telling you, it destroys so much people's life with the bullshit.
No, I understand. It does.
Yeah, you know, when I realized, dude, that the Bible is, dude, I tell you, I cried. Dude, some of the time I can't even eat. I wasted a part of my life. I want to realize Jesus, even was a man, I realized that Jesus had 3 wives.
What? Okay, which so now I've read some of the
not from the Bible.
Okay.
From a guy Spinoza, some historian that they kill him because Jewish historian Spinoza, they kill him because he investigated the Catholic Church so much that they killed him. You see what I'm saying? And Jesus was like a Hobier man, a magician, a juju man. He was like a Pan-Africanist.
Right.
I'm went to 3 mystery school. So if Jesus could do all the magic that Solomon did, Moses did, or more.
Right. So that's what I was gonna say. I'm from that's from Jesus the magician, right? Is that from that?
It was a magician.
Yeah. No, I'm with you because actually there's been many books that were written talk about Jesus being a magician, and then I know that there are some books that say that Mary Magdalene was his wife. I've never read anything that said he had 3 wives, but that's interesting. It wouldn't.
If you go back in Spinoza, try to see if we can get Spinoza book or what in document, because we can know. Some of his daughter, they have to go to Gaul. Gaul was ancient. Gaul was they had to run away to France. France was ancient Gaul. So Jesus, he was Cleopatra's grandson and Mark Antony in real life. You want research on it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a wild one. I ain't never heard that one before.
No, I'm serious.
How could he?
Yeshua, he had the option to choose from 2 thrones, 2 different thrones, because he was like Bob Marley, a half white man. I'm telling you.
How could he? But the timeline wouldn't work.
No, with Cleopatra and Jesus. Well, I'm not doubting that the timeline won't care. He went in Egypt, right? Well,
according to Matthew, he went down to Egypt.
Might be, yeah. You can't even just the Bible either.
Yeah, because Luke, as far as Luke is concerned, he never went to Egypt.
Oh my God! Woo. I'm not doubting you.
But the timeline wouldn't work for him to be Cleopatra and Mark Antony's child, because that would have to put him back in around 136, 140 BCE, something like that.
Or BCE would be before or after?
No, that's way before. That's in the that's like almost 150 years early. Because remember Julius, I think Julius Caesar was around 136, something like that, or 168, somewhere around in there. And then Mark Antony comes after Julius Caesar. Well, Cleopatra was alive during the time frame of Julius Caesar, and so was Mark Antony. So that would put it too far. Whoever wrote that, they was reaching. Unless now maybe this is what you know how Tacitus wrote that people were worshipers of Crestius. Maybe that was Crestius, and then later on they reframed it as Jesus.
Yeah,
that's a wild theory. That's a wild one. I'm gonna do some research on that and make a bullshit video about it.
Realize that his father had the same name like him. I heard that they were like many Yeshua, about 3 in its time.
Yeah, that was a very common name. That was just as common as John, Bob.
And there were even 16 crucified saved before him.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but yeah, there was multiple before him.
A whole lot before him.
Yeah, it was a common motif.
I tell you, I like to see the Bible. Honestly, I'm not against Christians. I'm not attacking the church, but every time, dude, if you were starting on a Christian thing, I wouldn't even come on this. I don't argue with Christians, and I don't go on Christians' content, you know?
Yeah, I don't.
Because a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. You see, instead of having your energy to drink some rum or to smoke something, man, you know, you're gonna waste it arguing. You know what I'm saying, my brother?
I understand.
Anyway, you can invite somebody else. Okay, don't let me tell
all
you.
Right. I appreciate you.
Nice meeting you, my brother.
Nice meeting you too.
You put that, okay?
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah,
all right. The Poom Poom is undefeated, y'all. Poom Poom is undefeated. Welcome to the show. What is the name? Curate?
Yes, Curate Deco.
Curate. Okay. I haven't. So you are a Bible believer?
Well, I'm a spiritualist.
Okay.
So I am not confined to any set of knowledge, or I'm syncretic. I think that best describes me.
You're what? What was that last part? You say you don't.
I'm syncretic. I'm syncretic in that I borrow perspectives from different forms of knowledge and from different religions.
Okay.
But I am a Christian. So I want to make an input, and I hope my accent is not so heavy, but I'll try my best.
It's not. Where are you from?
So I'm from Kenya.
Kenya? Cool. No, accent's fine then.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is my input. This world is governed by duality. And by duality, I mean that not everything is meant to prove the other. And this is seen in every aspect of life. In that there is light and darkness, life and death, justice and mercy, heaven and hell, mortality and immortality. To me, these poles are not meant to exist harmoniously, but rather to be reconciled for greater good. For example, while they may appear to be as opposites, but in fact, they are parallels. They are parallel forces that shape our existence.
Mm-hmm.
And I've borrowed this perspective from Freemasonry. I'm not a Mason, but I read here and there, and they have this symbol of strength and beauty. If you look at Freemasonry, they always have two pillars at the entrance. Mm-hmm. And these two pillars, it's borrowed from the Bible, from the entrance of the Temple of Solomon. And these pillars they should represent grace and mercy, in that you cannot be just strength without having an aspect of mercy to temper you to be a strong person. And this idea echoes an ancient understanding, and it's borrowed from ancient Egypt. And I've read a little, and I've come across a character called Hermes. And Hermes, before the Greeks called him Hermes, he was called Thoth. Mm-hmm. And Thoth always carried a single staff. And this single staff, twining, I think it's called twining, serpent, twining around it.
Have a what? A what around it?
This staff, a serpent. You've seen that, like,
a serpent, right? A serpent.
With,
yeah, a serpent.
Yes, a serpent.
Mm-hmm. He carried a caduceus.
And so this serpent represented opposing forces, and these opposing forces contributed to the transformation of the human psyche. And to maybe elaborate on this, like from a human perspective, you cannot prove the existence of God while being mortal, because these are two extremes on opposite sides. And to fully comprehend the nature of the divine from our finite perspective, I think is impossible. And to add something extra, God reveals himself by degrees. God is like an onion. So you might see an onion from the top, but once you start peeling it, different layers start manifesting themselves. And I'll give you an example. In the Bible, most people see the serpent and God to be opposing forces. But I don't see it to be like that. To me, long before even the serpent whispered into its ear, man was always meant to work. And to me, the serpent has always been a catalyst for the transformation of man. This is seen clearly even in the book of Job, where you see God and the serpent are seen to be conversing and to be deciding on the fate of Job. And from this trial, Job is transformed. So to me, good and evil are just two arms of one deity working. You know, in Egypt, they have this axiom.
All right. Okay. You wait. I gave you like a few minutes to, and you're just going on and on and on now, repeating the same thing for the most part. Now I get what you're saying. What you're saying is you believe in dualism, but because of dualism, because one extreme is to the other extreme, one cannot see or prove the other side of the extreme. But if you've been studying Thoth, or better known as Tahuti, then you've studied the Hermetics, and in Hermeticism, you can see the other side of the extreme simply by raising or lowering your vibrational thought process to the point where you do recognize and can validate the further sides of the extreme. So to say that you can't, the difference between mortal and spiritual, you wouldn't be able to get, well, mortal and God, you wouldn't be able to get there. Mortal and God don't exist on the same pole, first of all. But but when you look at the law of correspondence, and every time you raise your vibration through the different levels of the mind energy, then you are, according to that teaching, would be able to then identify and touch on the lowest level of the spiritual plane from the matter plane of existence of the mind. So to say that you wouldn't be able to identify them, that's not what Tahuti taught. He taught that you would be able to do that in Hermeticism. And that same duality teaching that you were speaking of as far as Masonry is concerned, Freemasonry, in Freemasonry, that is the whole purpose of Freemasonry, is to basically increase your mental and your actionable and emotional vibration. You're making a lot of noise. Hear it.
Oh, sorry.
But
yes,
in Freemasonry, you are supposed to increase your vibrational of your actions, your mind, and your heart to the point where you are entering into the spiritual, into a spiritual plane of being a better man. So in Masonry and I know you're not one, so you wouldn't know the depth to which it goes into that, and I'm not going to tell you, but you are able to identify that.
I've not read much into Hermes, but I have read much into alchemy. And in alchemy, the opposing forces are not meant to exist harmoniously, but they can be reconciled. In that, for man to truly rise to be to truly rise to the intended purpose, man must integrate a of the divinity within mortality. You can be a mortal man, but incorporation of language is a barrier here. Incorporation of of a divine nature transforms man. That's the goal of alchemy. That transform yourself,
Right.
you have to incorporate opposing forces.
Yeah, you got to deal with your shadow self so that you can raise your metallurgy from lead to gold, which is raising your mental thoughts, your emotional thoughts from lead to gold. Yeah, it's all similar teachings. These teachings are common teachings all over the world in many different religions. The Taoists teach that in order to touch the spiritual, you have to get into the energetic flow of the way.
Yes.
Buddhists teach that you peel back the lotus flower to be able to deal with yourself so that you can get into nirvana and rid yourself of desire. I mean, that teaching is commonplace.
Yes.
But in all those teachings, none of them have ever proven that any God exists. But Christianity doesn't teach that at all. Christianity teaches that, because you called yourself a Christian, but Christianity teaches that you are a filthy rag, and without Jesus, you will not ever see the divine because you are not worthy of it.
Well, without the teachings of Christ, I think there is a possibility of attaining to divinity. Is it divinity or immortality? To immortality or to salvation. And it's not in Christ in just a name. It's in Christ the teaching. Christ is an improvement of all the knowledge that existed before. In Christ, there is alchemy, there is hermeticism, there is Kabbalah. All those are improved.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
System of knowledge.
No, it's not. What did Jesus teach? What did Jesus teach to say that how do you get to divinity? How you get to heaven? How do you get to be with God? Teachings of Jesus. Now, not teachings of Paul, teachings of Jesus, not Paul. Because they're different. No. No. Jesus taught that. Jesus taught that in order to be reconciled to God, you have to follow the law.
Yes.
So,
but that one law, but all those laws that existed in the Old Testament, and all those who are reconciled into one law. In that, when you attain to a high level of understanding, you would love your neighbor just as you would love yourself. And in that way, you don't need any other law.
Why? But you're skipping. Nope, that doesn't work. He said if there was a second one, it would be love your neighbor as you love yourself. And neighbor means your fellow Israelites. Neighbor does not mean other people. But they said the greatest commandment is to love the Father and keep his commandments. So the only way you can love the Father is to keep his commandments. And the commandments are all throughout the Old Testament that this God repeatedly says are to be done in perpetuity. So following the law, doing your sin, sacrificing animals for atonement, sacrificing animals when a woman has a baby, don't steal, don't kill, don't covet, but keeping all the ritual laws as well. An unclean person is kicked out of your village until they are clean.
However, God does not need much from us, because everything that you want to do to please God, it's impossible to do it without pleasing your neighbor, without loving your neighbor.
No, that's not true. I'm not gonna let you pontificate like that. No, I'm not gonna let you pontificate like that, because you keep trying to bring it back to love, and you cannot in loving your neighbor. If I don't sit on the same bed as my wife sits on when she's having her menstrual cycle, what does that have to do with my neighbor?
Well, your wife is your neighbor.
But if I'm not sitting, she's considered unclean during her menstrual cycle. So as I'm following the law, when I don't touch anything she's touched, how is that showing her love?
Well, the in the Old Testament existed within a certain context. And that context is not relevant to this world that we are living in.
So,
People are walking in the desert. They
So,
have
wait,
a
wait.
gym.
so Jesus lied when he says that
Yes, even
Jesus lied.
even Jesus taught that.
No,
Jesus taught that
he
everything has to be rational.
no.
If you are, I think he taught if your animal falls into a pit on Sabbath, you don't leave it there. You take it out, no matter what the law says. It has to be. It has to make sense within a certain context.
That
context.
my guy. You're moving the goalpost to a whole nother discussion. I asked the question, and you went into those things aren't relevant to our time frame today. But Jesus said that the law is not to be changed and to be followed until heaven and earth, not until heaven and earth pass away. Has heaven and earth passed away?
Well, which other law can substitute love for your neighbor?
Has heaven and earth passed away? Has heaven?
Loving your neighbor.
Okay, this don't work where you just avoid my questions. Has heaven and earth passed away?
Nobody knows. These are spiritual things.
Are you on earth right now? Are you on earth right now? That is not a spiritual thing. That is very literal. He said the laws will not one tittle shall be taken away from the law until heaven and earth has passed away. Has heaven and earth passed away? It's very simple. The answer is no, because you're still on earth right now and the heavens are still above you.
It could be. It could be.
Come on, man. You're I know you got to cope in order to be Christian, but this is genius. Heaven and earth. I'm asking a very simple question. According to your Jesus, heaven and earth has to pass away before the law is abolished. Has heaven and earth passed away?
Well, I could say the old world has passed away, a new world has been born.
When did the earth become brand new?
Okay, I don't know if it has passed away.
No.
I don't know all the answers.
You don't want this one, you just don't want to admit it because you know where it puts you. You know heaven and earth hasn't passed away.
Okay, it has not passed away.
So then the law is still valid. Then me not touching anything my wife touches on her menstrual cycle, that's what I'm supposed to do. Not touch anything she touches because it's unclean. And that is not showing love to my wife. That is that, and there is no love in that towards my wife.
For you, it might make sense to say that. But imagine a Maasai in the Masai Mara game park, and this person has been away from home, having his cows, and you think he has time for those imaginings of not touching this, not doing this. He doesn't have time for that. His religion is in the life that he lives, not in hearsay or in laws or in written books. It's in the life that he's living.
You know what? You just broke it down.
And he's God.
No, you just broke it down to the reality of it. Our society and our cultures changed, and so people changed what the doctrine is. We stopped living in but that's not what the Bible says. You're making the Bible fit your modern day culture because you find it too hard. And let me explain. No, hold on. No, let me explain something to you. When I was a Christian, yeah, it was a pain in the ass, but I followed that bullshit. When my wife at the time, when she was on her cycle, I didn't sleep in the bed. I didn't sit on the sofa if she sat on it. Right? I made sure there was 2 places to sit. This is when you on your cycle, you sit over there, and I'm gonna sit over here. You sit in that chair, I'm gonna sit in this chair. I'm gonna go sleep in the guest bedroom. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but because I believed in this Bible, I did what the Bible says. And you just don't want to do it because that's not the culture you live in today. But if you was living in the culture back then, you'd did those things without a problem. And when I went to Saudi Arabia, and in the Arab community in Saudi Arabia, they still do that. When the wife is on her cycle, they got a whole new, most of the time, the ones who got enough money, they got a whole little side house for the wife during that time frame. And somebody else is making the dude food and everything else. And that's the only reason I know how to cook, is because during that time frame, I cook my own food. So it's bullshit. Y'all just don't want to do it. So you change it to make it fit. If you believe in Jesus, you need to be following the law.
Let me give you one more point and then I'll drop off.
All right.
So I've come to realize that God is both a being and a human construct. In that, God does not impose himself on us. It is us who study nature, and from the study of nature, we derive that whatever is happening must be caused by a higher mind. And God is light, shining through different spectrum. So from that spectrum or from that prism flows blue, red, whatever color. And those different colors are the different religions. They're not meant to exist together. They're supposed to portray a bigger picture. Yeah, but that's my parting shot.
All right, man, you are in such conflict. I mean, I'm gonna give my last thought here, but you are in a lot of conflict because the God of the Bible does not match the thought that you just espoused. Because the God of the Bible does imprint and forces himself on humankind. The God of the Bible says either you're gonna love me or I'm gonna condemn your ass to hell. The God of the Bible says that either you follow my tenets and my laws, or I'm going to put you into slavery, or I'm going to let the other people come and conquer you. Matter of fact, I'm going to send the Babylonians to conquer you, and then I'm going to make sure that your asses is starving because you don't want to follow my laws. So this God does impose his will on his people. He claims that throughout the whole damn Bible, and he claims that for the end times, that he's going to impose his will on you if you don't like him and agree with him and love him. So that whole light and shining through light and don't impose his will, those are two things that are not reconciled together with the Bible. So I think you're just holding on to Christianity because it's common and it makes you feel good. And maybe you started out as a Christian, but your new age way of thinking does not fit with Christianity. So, but I'm gonna go to the next person. But I appreciate you coming up here.
Okay, let's agree to disagree.
Oh, we will.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Appreciate you. Now, I don't know if Miss Fifi hit it by accident. You never know, Miss Fifi.
I hit that by accident.
My bad. Oh, Lord.
Man, you got the fruit of the spirit. You got patience, long suffering.
The Buddhist monks taught me to be more patient. So I'm trying to be even more patient than before.
Oh my goodness. I was like, oh my goodness. But anyway, maybe we should have, not we. Maybe the live would have people who is trying to talk about the Bible, have the Bible in front of them so they can go to these verses, right? So,
yeah.
That was a common thing about I said ye are gods and all you are children of the Most High. Now, that's a common thing in the Bible, but he didn't even know where to go get it at.
Yeah, I was hoping he was gonna go.
Say these people need to have their book in front of them so they can read for themselves.
Yeah, I was hoping that he would say that one because most people read that and don't understand what's actually happening there. That actually has nothing to do with humans, and that really shows that the writer of the New Testament didn't know Hebrew, that well, because this was this God sitting in his council talking to his B'nai Elohim, and he was telling them that they are gods. He wasn't telling David and all of them that they were gods. But most people don't get it that way because Jesus misquotes it, or the writer of the New Testament misquotes it because they don't understand Hebrew and they're reading the Septuagint, the Koine Greek. So they don't even know what the hell they're talking about on that one.
Well, everyone is kind of confused.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're pulling from here, you're pulling from there, you're pulling everything. I mean, I would be so confused. Well, anyway, just listening to him, I would be confused. Like, what am I going to believe today at this moment?
I know.
During the nighttime, when I'm, having that part of my body that, empties out and all that. Oh, my goodness. The more I hear about this stuff, the more I can't believe nothing.
No, and
I want to start from scratch. No indoctrination or nothing. I want to read this stuff and say, does it make sense?
Right.
Okay. And how can I apply it? But I can't go by all the. Oh my goodness. Ooh.
I understand.
I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you're talking with them. I just want to come up and say Happy New Year, and just encourage you to do what you do, because only you can do what you do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Happy New Year to you too.
I'm listening.
All right. Thank you, Miss Fifi. Y'all don't know, but I just escaped. I thought she was gonna fuss at me because I took a little hiatus. I knew. Let's see. I think follower of Jesus was next. I go one-on-one and I go by whoever came up, as far as I can tell, requested.
Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing?
I'm good, bro. I'm good. You can address me as Rampage or anything you want. Rampage is fine. What can I call you? Any name?
Renz. Renz.
Oh, Renz.
Yeah.
But that's right. Renz. Okay.
Yeah. Don't tell people they can address you however they want to.
Oh no. Okay. So.
Well, you want me to call you Pookie?
Nah.
Exactly.
Okay, I understand.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Oh, you said no one is in heaven or hell. Neither exists.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's start here. Okay. God created heaven and hell for those who choose to live away from God. They rebel from God. They don't want His love. So the thing is, what people don't understand about hell, they think that hell is a place for that God sends for people that He hates. No, it's not true. It's for people who want to live separate from God. That's what hell is. It's called. That's why God specifically says it's a separation from me. And God created us so He can take our lives anytime He wants. We are His creation. We can't complain whether He takes our life. That's the thing. So if you choose Him and you choose heaven, He will take you. And since He died for us on the cross with all of His love, He shed perfect blood for us so that we may go to heaven.
Okay.
And so
you're starting to preach. You're starting to preach a little bit here. So we don't do that.
No, I'm not preaching. I'm just saying.
I mean, you made your statement. So let me ask you a question. When did God create hell?
He created it in the beginning, like even before Earth existed.
So why is it that
specifically for those angels, like
Satan?
Well,
so okay, two things on that one. One, why is hell not mentioned anywhere in the Old Testament? And then two, according to the book of Enoch, when there was a war in heaven, the rebelling angels were cast down to earth. So,
they were cast down to earth to reign and rule the earth, so that we have a sort of
No.
free will.
It
So
does.
that we
No,
may choose good or evil.
You're not answering my question. You went on to something else, because no book, nothing said that the Old Testament doesn't say that they came down to earth to rule earth. So I'll repeat it again. No book in the Old Testament speaks of a hell. And I asked, when did God create hell? No book speaks of a hell. And then the angels, according to Enoch, which is where the war in heaven story comes from, they were cast down to earth as their prison. So hell wasn't made for the rebellious angels, as far as the Old Testament is concerned. So when was hell created?
Yeah, they were casted down to earth to wait for Jesus' judgment when Jesus returns.
Well, you first said that they were casted. You said that that was the place that hell was created.
That was my mistake.
So when was hell created?
It was created after the first sin was committed in heaven.
So your God created a hell. Instead of sending the angels down to hell, he sent them to earth.
Yes, to await Jesus' judgment.
So think about this logically. Your God has a war in heaven. The angels rebel. So now they're evil. So this God and he cast them down to earth. On the same earth, he decides he wants to create man, and he wants this man to be obedient, but he put man in the danger zone. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. Because he gives us two options. It's either you choose to live to have the devil as your father, or to have him as your father. Like, that's what free will is. It gives you the opportunity to choose good or bad.
How old are you?
Oh, I'm 19.
Oh, so you're underage to be on my show, but I'm gonna let you stay. So would you think it would have been, so do you think that your father would have been a good father if he allowed you to live in a house filled with gangsters, drug dealers, murderers, rapists, and said, here, my son, go live with them when you were a child, an infant, not knowing the difference between good and evil? Would you think your father is a good father?
No.
But that's what God did, according to your belief.
Well, no. Like, you making it seem like God put Adam and Eve right next to the devil. The devil came up to them. So the thing is, okay, let me just use your story. You said that a group of gangsters. I could choose to go in that house of the group of gangsters, or leave and go with my dad. That's the choice he had. Eve was tempted. For the first time of her temptation, she was tempted to eat the apple and become like God.
Okay, who let the gangster in? All right, so Adam and Eve supposedly were just chilling, minding their own business. And then God said, hey, gangster, murderer, I'm gonna let you in so you can mess with my children who don't even know the difference between good and evil. Oh, thank you for the heart. Appreciate that, New York. Do you understand how that sounds?
See that again? I didn't hear you said I put the hard stuff.
Oh, yeah, somebody gave a gift, so I always recommend. I got to acknowledge it. So, based on what you just said, God created a safe haven for Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve are infantile minded because they don't know the difference between good and evil. So they wouldn't know if somebody was telling them the truth, lying to them. They wouldn't know what evil is. God opened the door to let the gangster in. He let the child molester into the daycare. So that's a good God.
Yeah, because he gives us the option to love him or hate him. That's a good God.
You're deflecting. You're deflecting.
Wait. Just give me a second.
Not when you're deflecting, because Adam and Eve, do they know the difference between good and evil?
I'm not sure.
Well, the Bible says they don't.
Yeah, I don't know. it doesn't specify.
Okay, so yes, it does. It does.
Okay, what does it say?
Have you read this Bible?
Educate me about that.
Okay, so in the story of Genesis, starting in Genesis, it's in Genesis chapter, it starts in Genesis chapter 2, goes through Genesis chapter 3. God makes Adam, and then he brings all the animals, then he makes Eve. Then he tells Adam there's 2 trees in the garden. Well, there's a bunch of trees. You can eat from any tree except for the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Right? And he tells them, don't eat from it because in the day that you eat it, you will die. Adam doesn't eat from it. Then he makes Eve. Eve is standing there chilling. Here comes the serpent. The serpent is not devil. That's a whole nother conversation. But here comes the serpent. The serpent was created in the garden, according to chapter 2 and 3. In chapter 3, the devil tempts Eve. Eve eats from the apple. Then her eyes are open and she knows the difference between good and evil. And then she gives the fruit to Adam. So before the serpent tempts Eve, does Adam and Eve know the difference between good and evil?
Oh, yes. It's been a while since I read that chapter. Yes, they do.
How do they know the difference between good and evil if they have yet to consume from the tree of knowledge of good and evil?
Well, because God instructed them not to eat from the fruit. He gave them an option. Choose him. No, do not go to the fruit.
But do they know? You're not answering the question. Before they eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, do they know the difference between good and evil?
Yeah, if they do.
How do they know? When the Bible says they don't.
Well, God told them not to eat it. They didn't listen.
Did they know that was evil?
Yes. Because
how would they know if they haven't eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil?
I don't know.
Okay. I know they don't teach critical thinking in school no more. Well, I don't know. You might not be in America, so let me not say that. Okay. But where are you? What country are you in?
Oh, I'm in South Africa.
Okay. I don't know y'all educational system, but critically, I need you to critically think, young man. If the only way they knew the difference between good and evil is when they eat from this tree, then prior to that, they cannot know the difference between good and evil. You understand?
Okay.
So then, therefore, they would not have known that disobeying the God is evil.
I see. Okay.
And in that story, the God admits that he was the one who lied and that the serpent did not lie.
God admits that he lied.
Pretty much.
Because God is not a confused God. He does not lie. He even says in the Bible that God is not the person to lie. So he did not lie about anything.
Okay. I want you to critically think again. God told Adam, in the day that you eat from it, you will die, right?
Yes.
The day that they ate from it, did they die?
No, but they died eventually.
But they did not die in the day that they ate from it. And the word day there, the Hebrew word is yom. Yom means a 24-hour day. All throughout Genesis 1, when he says the morning and the evening, that was day 1, it uses the word yom. Yom is a 24-hour day. So he said, in the day that you eat it, you will die. They did not die that day. So did God tell the truth or not?
Well, he did tell the truth, because the thing is, God's time and our time does not work the same. God is in eternity. We are not. So a day to him could be 1,000 years. No,
that is an unspecified doctrine that was added by later thinkers of the Bible in around the 2nd century. In the Hebrew usage of the word day in that time frame when it was written meant a 24-hour day. Had nothing to do with 1 Peter, where it says that one day to God is 1,000 years to man. That's not even a specified thing. That's just giving an idea that God is out of time. They're not connected at all. people have made it a connection there because of their own doctrine. But when you read Genesis, the author of Genesis is writing a day as a 24-hour day. So this God did not tell Adam the truth because Adam did not die. It was an empty threat. And he admits that man has now become like us, knowing the difference between good and evil. So he admits that man didn't know the difference between good and evil until after they ate from the tree.
All right. Okay. I got an older brother here. He's like better than me. So can he answer you real quick, like right now?
Sure.
Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing, older brother?
I'm doing good. Thanks, man.
What's your name?
My name is Levis.
Levis?
Yes.
Okay. And how old are you, Levis?
I'm 19.
Wait a minute. How in the hell are you older? And he said he was 19.
Well, I'm turning 20. I'm currently now 19.
Oh, your parents. Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, so what was the question? I just got you.
Well, I was explaining to your younger brother
Yeah.
how the God of the Bible imposed the punishment on Adam and Eve when they were ignorant of the idea of good and evil because they had not eaten from the tree yet, so they would not have known the difference between good and evil until after they ate from the tree of life. I mean, tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then he admits that man has become like us, knowing the difference between good and evil, and that he then also gave an empty threat, or i.e. a lie, by saying that they will die in the day that they eat from the tree, and they did not die.
Well, yeah, that's a fair and good question. I'm actually excited about the last questions about him dying on that same day. I want to answer that part. So, when God says that in the day they eat it, they shall die, right? One thing you should know that the Bible teaches that one day to God is like 1,000 years. All right?
No, it's not.
So,
no, it's not.
yes, it is.
That is something that was written in 1 Peter that was used as an analogy to say that God is outside of time. It was not utilized. It was not written to mean that every time the Bible uses the word yom in Genesis, that it is referring to an extended period of time. When the writers of Genesis wrote Genesis, and this was the priestly clan and the Yahwist clan, they both wrote yom and all the surrounding words of it, the context clues, to mean a 24-hour day.
Yeah, no, I get it, right? And that you're absolutely right. I'm just saying, when you look at the context of what God meant by day, he's referring to that in 2 Peter.
No, he's not. How can God refer to something in 2 Peter that's written in Genesis that's written at least 1,000 years before?
I mean, just because it wasn't written by them doesn't mean that it wasn't true. Peter just wrote it down.
So you're saying that all those Jewish people from 1000 BCE thought that it was a 24-hour day, lived and died, and then here in early 2nd century, now is corrected. So God just let all those people walk around confused.
No, I'm not saying that the word day is just used for the 1,000 year. Of course, it's used for 24 hours. I'm just saying that the word day doesn't always mean 24 hours. It can also refer, especially when God is speaking, it can also refer to 1,000 years.
So in the context of Genesis 1, 2, and 3, it is used to mean a 24-hour day.
No, it's not 24-hour day because they didn't die in 24 hours.
So what is the morning and the evening? And that is day 1. Is that a 24-hour day?
Oh, you're talking about that in creation.
Is that a 24-hour day?
I mean, I believe that it's a 24-hour day,
Okay.
But some other Christians interpret as 1,000 years.
All right.
So this comes to interpretations already.
So what I'm telling you is that the writers of Genesis meant yom to mean a 24-hour day all throughout Genesis.
According to who?
according to the writers and their context clues within their writing.
Yeah, but like when you look at the context of when God says in the day you shall surely die, you can see that they didn't die in a day in 24 hours.
Right.
And that's why when you see in conclusion, it can be just day in 24
No.
hours. It means 1,000 years.
That's not in conclusion, in interpretations in order to make it fit. Because there is not one biblical scholar that says that means an extended period of time.
Peter did.
Peter is not a biblical scholar. The writer of Peter did not understand Hebrew.
But he didn't understand Hebrew according to him. He was an Israelite.
Who wrote Peter? No, Peter was most likely written by a follower of Paul, and most likely a Gentile.
Well, no, because like when you read Peter, right? Peter actually writes there, our beloved Paul, our beloved brother Paul. Unless Paul is writing about himself, I am the beloved brother Paul. But Peter is writing about someone else, which is Paul, so it can't be about Paul.
Peter didn't write First Peter. The apostle Peter did not write First Peter. First Peter is written by a follower of Paul. And what writers did back in those days, and still do it today, is to insert the authority of previous people that they cannot be fact checked on in order to give themselves authority.
Then who wrote First Peter?
A follower of Paul, not Peter.
Are you the very first verse where it says this is a letter from Peter in First Peter? And it goes on saying whatever you want to say.
Okay, it would be like I can sit right now and say this is a letter from Martin Luther King, and then write a whole bunch of stuff. Can I do that?
Okay.
Can I do that?
You can, but you gotta prove that it's not Peter. It's gonna be someone else.
Exactly, which is what biblical linguists have proven that is not from Peter. Peter didn't write that.
Okay, but
First Peter was written way after, if a disciple Peter lived, way after he would have died.
According to like what you get that from one history tells you that.
Shit, biblical archaeology shows that. The linguistics of Peter, the writing style of Peter did not exist in early first century. There are certain ways that people write at all different time frames. And based on that, you can tell when something was written. That's one of the ways you can tell when something was written. And First Peter is not written in the style of first century Koine Greek. Early first century Koine Greek. It's written in late first century to early second century Koine Greek. So this is why almost any biblical scholar who's not an apologist recognizes that it's not written by Peter.
But it was written in 63 AD.
It was written when?
In 63 AD or 80, whatever which you want to call it. You can search it up. I'm not advancing. First Peter was written by the author Peter, written around in the.
That is church tradition. Church tradition says that it was written at that time frame. Archaeology, biblical linguist archaeology says that it's not. That it is written much later.
But notice how I'm giving interpretations, which is evidence. You just begin claiming and you say, well, it's just biblical archaeology.
Tradition is not evidence. Do you know what the word tradition means?
Yes, tradition is, well, according to my definition, is something that's like common in old fashioned how things they do.
Right. It's just a belief. It's just a common thing that you repeatedly do over and over again or believe over and over again. The same way church tradition says that Mary's mother was Anne, and what Mary's mother name was Anne, and that she was born immaculately. That's church tradition. There's nothing that demonstrates that.
Okay, but like, can you give me some type of source so that I can go and see if that's true that Peter didn't write this? Any source really? unless it doesn't exist.
Let me look for a second here. Because I don't have so right now I can't go to
It's okay, man. I can help you upload that. That does not exist. No.
Oh no, well, you're not helping me out. It's just that the way that I would normally look this up if I wasn't just sitting here on a live is that I would go and find the PhD papers on it. You see, I don't just read what the biblical apologists are saying or what church tradition says. I actually go and find what actual biblical scholars have written about it.
Okay.
But it's a long process to do it that way. Well, it's not long. It's just you have to read. You don't just read the first paper on it. You go and read multiple papers on it because you want to read you read what the writer wrote, the scholar wrote, but then you go and read anything that you read the peer review as well.
Okay.
And the thing about reading these papers is that because these are turned in for PhD paperwork, they're generally long as hell and go into a whole bunch of pre-information. So you know what? Basically, what I'm saying is go to Google Scholar, ask the question. First Peter was not written by Peter. All right. And then you'll get multiple PhD papers about it. And when you see those from Bible scholars, and you'll get multiple ones, and then at the within them, most of them should have also peer review papers where other scholars who have already gotten their PhDs have reviewed the work, and they question some parts, they disagree with some parts, or they agree with some parts. And you read about 5 or 6 of those in order to get a consensus of where the information ends up. Because I'm looking through one right now, and I'm scanning it to try to get to the information, because there's a whole bunch of pre-introductions and.
Well, there's actually, maybe if you want to,
like,
there's actually about.
Hold on. Like, I'm reading one person's, and he said the most likely solution is that First Peter is pseudonymous writing, which means that somebody else wrote it. That is, the text is written by a later author who invokes Peter's name as the author of the letter. Such a rhetorical device was not unknown in the ancient world, especially when the later discipleship and followers of a great leader or teacher wished to endow the writer with the authority of the reverend teacher.
What's his name? What's the name of the scholar?
This particular one I'm scanning through right now is Donald P. Senior, and then this is a 2-part paper, but the First Peter part is written by Donald P. Senior, CP. It's a 2-part paper or publication that's written by Donald P. Senior, and Daniel J. Harrington. But you'll be able to find multiple ones. J.B. Green writes one. I.H. Marshall writes one. K.H. Jobes writes one. W.A. Grudem writes it. So there are multiple papers that come up based on First Peter not being authored by Peter.
Well, according to my research, I have 4 scholars who agree that it was written around 62 to 63 AD.
And who are those scholars?
Well, the first one is Wayne Grudem.
Who?
Right.
Wayne Grudem.
The second one is
Hold on. So when you're looking at Wayne Grudem, and I'm only going through this because of your age, honestly. So Wayne Grudem is an American Reformed Baptist theologian of the New Testament scholar. And he went to his theology research, professor of theology and biblical studies at Phoenix Seminary. So he's a seminary theologian. He did get his education at Westminster Theology Seminary, but he went through a seminary. Then he went to Harvard and he went to Cambridge. But he started his information. He starts at seminary schools. So one of the things you may want to understand about seminary schools is that when you go to a seminary school, you have to sign a document saying that no matter what information you find, you are going to defend the Bible and the doctrines of it.
Because like he was born in 1943, and that's like later. I can give in people like born like in the 100 AD upwards. I can give you another one. You can search about it. Yeah, here's a comment on this Tertullian. Do you know Tertullian?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tertullian, he wrote against the heresies. Tertullian, he lived in the 3rd century. So Tertullian he's not an eyewitness as to who wrote Peter. So he's making his statements and claims a couple hundred years after the so-called events actually happened. And Tertullian was a part of the orthodoxy that would become the Roman Catholic Church. And he was very instrumental in forcing orthodoxy or promoting orthodoxy. So he, just like seminary, is already coming from a predetermined point in his writings concerning the heresies and anything else that he wrote. So he's not writing as an unbiased author. And there's a very popular saying in my generation that says that if you don't know the history of the author, then you don't know what you're reading. Because basically you're reading the opinion of that author.
What's the name of the what's the name of the scholar that you gave me again?
Oh shit. That was hold on. The first one I gave you was Donald Senior.
Donald Senior. Okay. And He lived in 1950, like when he was born in 1915, and that's also a late scon.
Well, he was
close to that.
He was born in 1940. You do realize that the more time goes by, we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. Now, Donald P. Sr. was he was a Catholic theologian. And so you have a Catholic theologian who is saying that First Peter was not written by Peter. It was written by it was pseudographically written. Now you have to ask the question, if you got a Catholic priest who is going against the grain of Tertullian, going against the grain of the other person that you mentioned, and saying that First Peter was not written by Peter. Now, when I was scanning his paperwork, he still is validating apostolic succession, but because he's a Catholic priest and he has to, but at least he recognizes the truth of the matter is that First Peter was not written by Peter.
Wait, like, is his full name Donald Guthrie?
No, Donald Sr. Donald, and his last name is Senior. He's not like Donald Colfrey Sr. His name is Donald Sr.
Donald Sr.
Yeah.
Like,
are you Catholic? Are you Catholic? Huh? Are you Catholic?
No.
Okay, I was just asking.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that if you're reading, you have to check the author and see if you're reading a biased report. But then also you look at what majority of scholars are looking at, what they're saying, what they validate. When they are validating that First Peter is not written by Peter, and this is what non-apologetics practices are saying, then the consensus is that it's not written by Peter. And especially when they look at the language, and the language is not early, or in this case, mid first century, then it's written later. Let me give you an example of writings, how they mess up their writings. You've read Matthew, right? Matthew and Mark, and you read the story of Judas.
Yes.
Judas refers to Jesus as rabbi. Okay. At the time frame, rabbi, the rabbinical Judaism didn't start until after 70 CE. So it is unlikely that they would have been calling Jesus rabbi in early first century, during the time frame that Jesus supposedly was alive. That's one of the things that let you know that Matthew and Mark is most likely written after 70, not before 70. So that's one way of determining when something is written, because of the use of the term rabbi.
Okay, like, I don't remember fully, but what verse is it called rabbi? Just quick wanna check it out.
Oh, right off the top of my head, I don't know. Just search Judas calling Jesus rabbi, and the verses should pop up. I'll do it for you. I know you're probably on your phone. You're going to find that in Matthew 26:25, Matthew 26:49 is when he calls him rabbi. Now, rabbi was a term in early first century, but it generally wasn't utilized for the religious leader. That would have been more of a slang that's used for the lower caste of priest, priest. To call a top dog religious leader rabbi, that would not have happened until after 70, because that's when rabbinical Judaism came into play and became the structure of Judaism. Well, a mainline structure of Judaism.
But what I'm trying to understand is that, or what I'm hearing is that the word rabbi was there, but it wasn't necessarily being used more often because it refers to the religious leaders. Is that correct?
Yeah, it wouldn't have been, you wouldn't have called Jesus rabbi in 30 or 29 CE. You wouldn't call Jesus rabbi.
Why is that?
Because it would have been disrespectful in one sense, because you would have been lowering the authority of Jesus at that time frame.
But Jesus gave authority like he told the disciples.
You miss what I'm saying. That has nothing to do with what I'm saying. Absolutely nothing to do with it. If you were a follower of Jesus in 29 CE and you would have called him rabbi, he would have looked at you like, dude, seriously? Like, you gonna disrespect me like that?
Like, what does rabbi mean?
I mean, rabbi means like father.
Father?
I mean, father or teacher. I mean, master. Sorry, I said father, but it means like master or teacher. Right?
So,
but
Jesus would be confused if you called him rabbi or master.
He wouldn't be confused.
Okay, sure.
He would have been somewhat insulted if you would have called him that when he was the top dog religious leader of that sect. Now, if it's after 70, if it's around 80, 90 CE, and you called him rabbi, the word rabbi had gained authority at that point. You understand?
I understand. Like, the thing is that.
So that shows that Matthew was not written until sometime after 70.
Listen, my point is that rabbi can mean master or teacher.
Yes.
The whole point is that because if I existed back then, and I called him rabbi, which means in this case we'll just say master. If I called him that, he would have looked at me like, bro, like what are you doing, bro?
Yes, he would have.
Like, yeah.
You're missing. You're mashing it all together, and you're not understanding how words change through time. Right? So let's see, what's the word? Okay, so what does the word awful mean? What does the word awful mean? If I said and I forgot how you say your name. What's your name again?
Lovers.
If I said Lavas, you're awful. If I said that to you, what would that mean?
Oh.
How would you take that?
Well, I would take it like something that's bad, disgusting.
Okay.
Sometimes rude, you know.
All right. Now, 100 years ago, if I said, Lava, you're awful, that's a good thing back then. That means that I am full of awe of you in a good way. But that word has changed its meaning to mean something negative. You understand?
Okay, so when it comes to rabbi, what's the difference between then and now?
So rabbi, prior to the destruction of the temple, meant that you were like a lower level peasant teacher. After the destruction of the temple, Rabbinic Judaism became more popularized, and rabbi then gained more authority to mean master, to mean you're great, you're amazing, you're a top dog.
Okay, but like according to what that it meant something low. Can you tell me source anything?
No, I can't go through all of that on here with you on a live. Right? So what you can do, because we went past the 20 minutes I try to give people. What you can do is go research the difference of the term rabbi prior to Rabbinic Judaism. So understand that after the temple was destroyed, Rabbinic Judaism replaced, for the most part, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and all those people. And then Rabbinic Judaism grew in power. That's when rabbi became a powerful, authoritative term. So that's what I was getting at with the language tells us, is one of the things that tells us when something was most likely written.
Well, I went and, while you were speaking, I researched what you said on iTunes, right? And before Judaism, before, the title even began to mean something big or strong, so I'm going to read it. It says, before rabbinic Judaism developed, right, after 70 AD, the word rabbi had a singular or non-formal meaning. And then it goes on to say, rabbi literally means my master or teacher. It is not yet an official religious office or ordination. So the words remain the same. It just went to religious ordination.
Right. It wasn't official. It didn't have any authority behind it when you call somebody rabbi prior to Rabbinic Judaism. So you would not have called Jesus rabbi prior to around 70 and prior to 70.
But when Jesus was Jesus rabbi, he's calling him master or teacher.
Okay.
Religious or not. The word is still the same.
Okay. All right.
I like your view, by the way.
Oh, thank you. But okay. I don't. You're not under. I don't think you. I don't think you quite get it yet, and that's fine. I don't know how else to explain it to you. I mean, you just read it yourself. It didn't have any structure. It didn't have the same authority prior to 70. So you wouldn't call somebody of importance at the level that Jesus was supposed to be at rabbi at that time. I don't. But because he does, it's one of the reasons why we know Matthew wasn't written prior to the destruction of the temple, that it was written much later.
Well, the thing is that when Judas used the word rabbi, I don't think he meant it in a meaning that Jesus is in a high position. I think here he's calling him master or teacher because they call him master and teacher all the time. He just means rabbi for another word.
But it wasn't used with authority until after 70, which is still first century, but it's late first century. But Jesus supposedly lived in early first century.
No, I understand you. We can't even take that. I'm just saying that Judas isn't talking about authority. He's just talking about master or teacher.
Okay. I got to move on to the next person. But I appreciate the two brothers. So it was nice talking to you.
You too. Right? Have a nice day.
All right, you too. All the way from South Africa. Let's see. I saw you come up here on. Unmute your mic, Joseph.
Mic check, mic check.
Okay, can hear you good.
You can hear me well?
Yep. It's a little muffled, but we got you.
Okay.
Call me a mentee. You're after. I mean, y'all. Y'all is after, and then call me a mentee, and then take notes. Go ahead.
Okay. Let me know if this sounds.
Now you're still a little muffled, but go ahead. I'll just move my mic over here closer to the speakers.
Is that better? That should be.
That is a lot better.
Okay, cool. All right, well, this is my first time on this show. I've only seen some of your scripted videos and clips of your live shows that you put on YouTube, just to kind of get an idea of your mindset and where you are. Well, this you're the host, so I see the title of tonight's stream, which is "No One Is in Heaven or Hell, and Neither Exists." Could you, I guess, briefly explain to me how your format typically goes for your streams, so I can kind of follow it the best way I can?
I mean, you can make your statements, I may interject if I need clarity on a certain part that you may say, and we just
Okay.
discuss it back and forth. Um, and I
Okay.
try to give people 20 minutes at max.
Mhm.
So I mean, that's the basic way it works.
Okay.
Oh,
Um,
don't try to overtalk me or loud talk me. That ain't gonna work. But yeah, so
oh yeah, no, I'm cool on that. 'Cause I get that people can get very passionate about these subjects, but me, I'm just more curious as to how you came to your conclusion that no one is in heaven or hell. And if you say that testimony is not proof of that, of either or, then what would be sufficient proof for you? What would be the burden of proof for you that a heaven or hell does exist? And what was the proof for you that made you determine that it does not exist? Since
okay.
proof of testimony is not going to work for you.
Yeah, proof of testimony is certainly not gonna work. But so when the Bible is conflicting, all right. So the first thing is that I don't believe the God of the Bible actually exists. So if the God of the Bible don't exist, then his rendition, the biblical rendition, which is not until the not until the New Testament of heaven and hell, then they don't exist in our modern day doctrine of heaven and hell. Um, but the Bible is, but then within the Bible, there is one of the things that lead me to that is the fact that the Bible is in conflict of what heaven and hell is in the first place. Old Testament never speaks of a hell at all. There is no hell in the Old Testament. Heaven in the Old Testament is the firmament, the area of space between the land and the firmament, and then God's existing is slightly above the firmament. According to the Old Testament, Enoch and Elijah are they were brought up into the heavens, right? But then Jesus conflicts himself by first telling the thieves that on this you'll be in heaven on this day with me and my Father, right? But then earlier, before the crucifixion, he says that no one has been to heaven and come back. No one has been to heaven except for him, which goes in conflict with Elijah and Enoch. So Jesus is like wavering back and forth on it and contradicting himself. But then, like I said, there is no proof of this God, and all the information, most of the information goes against this God. So then those places can't exist if this God doesn't exist.
So that's how you came to the conclusion that for you, God, so you're an atheist in a way.
Not in a way, I am.
Oh, okay. Straight up. All right. There's just some atheists that have different like variations of how they describe themselves as atheists. So, okay. So you're straightforward. I like that. There's no ambiguity in your response to that. Yeah, I would not disagree with you that the Bible has some blatant and perhaps even obvious uh, back and forth. So it's saying one thing here and saying another thing here. Maybe it's contradicting itself in the Old Testament, New Testament, maybe simultaneously. How can two things exist at the same time? And I also understand that the way that I've been spoken to about these things is that you just can't simply understand these things
Right.
because you don't have the spiritual understanding to make sense of things that is nonsensical. So the things that you just mentioned are the same things that I struggle with myself.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way I was able to look past it to a certain degree is with a guidance from a place that you say doesn't exist, or from a being that you say doesn't exist, which is God.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much that these things in scripture are completely false. It's kind of like oil and water, right? A lot of people look at the oil, that's disgusting, but they're not looking at the water, the spirit of the message. These were still men who wrote the Bible, inspired by something outside of themselves to write it, but also because they are also man, that it could not have possibly been God that wrote it because of the contradictions that you mentioned. So I struggle with that myself as well, and even still to this day. But over time, only through, I guess you would call it, or most people would call it prayer, or getting some sort of information. It's like there's a clarity to it. So yes, there are contradictions, and I wouldn't disagree with you on Jesus saying that there's a, that on one hand he's saying there's a heaven or there's a hell, and then on the other hand he's saying that people are not going to be there. Um, is it possible two things can be true at the same time? In the sense that when Jesus was describing a place that people have never been, maybe that wasn't necessarily describing a place that where he was at was where people haven't been. Meaning, I suspect, and this is my suspicion about it, he was at a higher level of what one would call heaven, compared to those before him who came to see him, I think in the Transfiguration, which was, I think, Abraham, Enoch, Elijah, and a few others. They came to him from a place, apparently, to look to him for advice on how to get to that place that he was at while he was on earth. But it wasn't necessarily that they wasn't in a heaven at all, but that they wasn't at a certain level where Jesus was at. So he was an elevated level above them, sort of like a CEO. Then you have the supervisor, you have the manager beneath them. They've never achieved the CEO status. And so you had Christ at the height of it all. Like, how can this man possibly be at this level when he's here on earth and we are here in this other realm, right? This heavenly realm, if you call it that, if you call it such. So that is to me, that's the most logical conclusion. That is not that neither one is true. Is that they themselves, the Older Testament fellas, haven't achieved the level of spirituality that Christ did while he was here on his 33 years of earth. So they were coming to him for advice on how to obtain that. So perhaps when Jesus was saying that no one has been to the heavens that I have been to, that you're looking to achieve, it's like they want to get to a higher level, but maybe there was a ceiling. Maybe there was a ceiling that they hit that they couldn't break that barrier. Kind of like until that one guy broke the 5-minute mile or whatever that was, no one believed it was possible. So it wasn't so much that you cannot run to a certain point or you couldn't run at a certain speed, is that no one believed it was possible until Christ came to make it known. Actually, you can go much faster than you think you can go. So that is my personal understanding from up to this point, from prayer, and just like, okay, can you explain the contradictions that you just named that I had questions about? I was like, that doesn't make any sense. So, right. And then from that kind of download that my own human mind can't make sense of, I said, okay, this makes more sense. And I'm sure it'll make more sense over the years as I get older. But now I guess I would like your response to that. I'm sure you have a rebuttal, but I would like to hear what it is.
Yeah. It's called coping and confirmation bias.
Coping.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then, and not trying to, what's the word? Insult you. But oftentimes when we have a desire to believe something, then a coping mechanism is to re-engineer everything so that we can make it fit. And we can have that confirmation bias to say that, okay, now, even though I know that there is a contradiction, if I create this additional doctrine, which is not found in the Bible at all,
true,
then I can make it fit so that I can still accept what Jesus said and still accept what the Old Testament says. So that's a coping mechanism in order to do that. So you're ignoring the contradiction. There is absolutely nothing in the Bible that says that Jesus is on a different plane of consciousness, or there's another level of heaven that Enoch and Elijah didn't go to. Enoch and Elijah supposedly went to and walked with God. Now, if they're walking with God, they are in the highest realm with God. Because if there's a realm higher than God, then that would not make God God. Because then there was something bigger than this God. So there can't be a different level that Jesus is at, and that those guys didn't quite make it to that level because they walk with God. So simply put, it's what you come up with is the way to cope with the contradiction.
Okay. Coping mechanism engineer is re-engineer everything, makes things fit. You're right in that the things I'm saying is not even, I don't think even any scholars, and I've listened to a lot of them, they wouldn't even come to some of these conclusions
Mm-mm.
that most of them, probably none of them. I talk to a lot of Christian friends. They're like, "You're crazy. You're definitely not a Christian because you're talking like the way I'm just speaking to you now." They're much less receptive to it. Not that you are, but at least you're like, okay, this is odd. The thing is that it's more odd, strange to me. So it's not as if I went out of my way to search for this because it doesn't make any sense. This is just like it's like what if when walking, someone's walking with God. He's walking with us where we are on our level to some extent. At least that's supposedly where he's at. I can't walk with him with where he's at, if there is a God. So if
Mm-hmm.
he's walking with me, that would imply that he's walking side by side with me at the level that I am at. And so the information in which I spoke about earlier to this topic that gave me that is because perhaps he felt like, well, this is something that he can now handle understanding these seemingly contradictions in scripture, that just being one of them, of which there are hundreds of them. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the Bible is completely not true. Then you have the opposite end of the extreme, my Christian friends who they call it the infallible word of God, which is foolish to think is infallible because of the contradictions that you mentioned, one of many of them. However, there's the opposite end of the pendulum in which you fall on, where it's you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. None of it, because of these contradictions here, none of it is true. But then you have the opposite extreme where my Christian friends are saying, in spite of these contradictions, all of it is true. I think both sides of that mindset is you said what I had was a coping mechanism. I would say that for you, this would also be a coping mechanism, an excuse not to look to God for understanding of these things that don't make sense in scripture. Because I thought that was an excuse too, until I guess, humility in a sense, like, well, if you are real, God, then what is the truth? And over years, it's not like it's a sudden thing. It comes to you in dreams, it comes to you in confirmation, sudden inspiration. Where did this come from? Things they say you can't get in the Bible anymore. That it's canon. You can never get revelation from God anymore. Revelation is in the Bible. You don't. No human being can have it. But that would also be a lie. So it's a lot of misinformation there. So I'm coming from it. I'm coming at this more from a unfortunately, I know you say testimony is not approved, but testimony of myself. But real quick, how do
Wait a
you
minute. Hold on.
describe?
Hold on.
Okay, okay,
Let me
go ahead.
respond to some of what you were saying. So I know this is your first time here, so you probably haven't heard a lot of the things that I say. I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Okay,
I just throw out the bathwater, right? Now, but the only baby that's here is did certain kings exist? Yes, that are mentioned in the Bible. Do certain places exist that's mentioned in the Bible? Sure.
Mhm.
Are there other certain people in the Bible or events? Yes, those things that we can historically demonstrate through archaeology. Yeah, I'm with that. Some of the moral things that the Bible does talk about, there's some of the moral things I can agree with. So I don't throw it all out. I don't throw it all out. But what I find is that, and you had asked burden of proof. So in my search for God, because I came at it with a huge hunger and desire to believe in this God. But in my search in going to Israel and going to Egypt, going to Italy, living in the libraries and all that sort of thing, because I started this before there was an internet. Well, before the internet was public, I should say. I was searching for God. I was praying and begging and pleading and crying for God, for understanding. But everything just kept leading to the Bible just not being, what's the word? Not being
Sufficient?
authorized, not being authentic. Yeah, not being authentic. Because when I study the politics and the power and the cultures around the Bible from biblical history, I saw how, and to stick with the subject matter, I saw how the idea of heaven and hell is not something that throughout the writings of the Bible was a common theme. It didn't speak in univocality, that it adjusted based on whatever culture they were under. So when they were under the Assyrians, they had a thought. When they came under the Babylonians, they had a thought. Then when they got under the Persians, so the Babylonians on back, it was just Sheol. On back to before the Assyrians. So, but when you get to like Exodus and Genesis and all that, there is no Sheol. There's not even Sheol in Genesis. But then once they come under, Assyrians, then there's a Sheol. Babylonians, they maintain Sheol. But then they get under the Persians, and all of a sudden there's a little bit of shaking of the ground where there may be Abraham's bosom and Abaddon. And they definitely picked that up under the Greeks. When they were under Greek control, they established Abraham bosom and Abaddon to mimic Hades. And then as they came under Roman rule, that's when they took the Zoroastrian teachings and went 100% into the heaven and hell aspect of it, mainly. And then you see the big imprint of that when you get to the book of Revelations, which is not written until late first century, early second century. So when I see that growth into something, then it lets me know that it wasn't from the beginning. And if this God is going to be perfect in his writings and mind and all that, it should have been established from day one, not something that man developed through doctrine. And even now we read into it a whole bunch of thought processes based on how we live today and what our understanding today has become. I mean, hell, there was a lot of black people who thought that black folks couldn't go to heaven, unless they get transformed into a white person.
Oh, yeah.
And they lived and died believing that.
Yeah, fortunately.
But religion is like clay. People have molded religions to fit their current lifestyle, current culture. So when I saw all of that stuff, I got to a point where I just had to say, this is all just man's creation of trying to understand life, nature, and then realizing how to utilize this for political power.
Okay, that's cool. You've been to Israel, you've been to Egypt, Italy. That's dope, man.
Been to Jordan.
You have
and
a lot
all
more. Wow.
Okay.
So I would assume you probably even went to the River Jordan, or
Yep.
all the historical sites. Yeah, you've been to
Yep,
them all.
I was upset when they wouldn't let me get baptized in the River Jordan because it was nasty as shit at the time frame that I went.
Oh, that must have. Oh, wow.
Yeah, but for decades I had a little bottle of Jordan River water. But yes, I've been all over those areas, and part of it I was acting like a tourist, of course, but there was other parts where I got to go to. I went to archaeological dig sites and went to a lot of the basement of a lot of museums. If you go to a museum, 10%, everything you're seeing in the museum is only 10% of what they really have. You got to get into the bottom of the museum. You got to see what the archaeologists are down there working on. That's where the good shit's at.
And you know what? I give you way more credit. It's interesting how, when you speak about the Bible, you actually been to these places. I always give credit to Muslims because at least they make the trip to Mecca, right? They go, they travel, they believe it. They say they believe it. Maybe they live in America or wherever they live. They're saying, I'm going to spend the money and time to get to this place but I've never met. No. It's rare for me to meet a Christian who has actually taken the time to even just go to Jerusalem, as you have. So you were truly earnest in your search for that. Whereas I met a lot of Christians who believe on the strength of mostly just the Bible. They haven't actually made any trips. They haven't done any actual work. They haven't made any sacrifices to put their faith to the test, as you have. But yet they believe so emphatically about the faith that they have. So I personally admire you for that. And to touch on what you just spoke on, you having a hunger for God, and the common thing is that, so the way that you describe how the Jews were coming to understand certain things or adding some things, maybe subtracting some things, that's the human element that I was speaking about. And also, I started this off by saying that that's also the case for me, that I had what I thought was a complete understanding of things until it's like, oh, it's like a little nugget. It's like you add that piece of the puzzle to it, but you're still missing a lot of pieces of the puzzle. And then as you grow and evolve, it could take who knows how long, a month, years for most people, and then another piece of the puzzle. So the way you describe the Jews and how they started off, well, they believed only this about heaven and hell, and then it evolved to this, and then they modeled it a little bit after this, and then they added this. That is pretty much, I believe, how most humans are in terms of how we develop. Even when you look at just the way we grow up from a baby up to an adult, the things that we believe as a child, we don't believe now as an adult, or it's refined or it's reshaped in such a way to give it more weight and meaning. Oh, the sky is blue. Okay, now you're an adult. You can now understand why the sky is blue. But because you have the now mental capacity to understand why the sky is blue, we've gone past the part that is pretty and blue. Now let's talk about the reason why. Now let's talk about the reason how. So in that way that we understand this materially, in terms of the scientific method going from start to finish, I would argue that it works the same exact way, if not more so, spiritually. So that growth process of, well, they started here, then they get here, that does not necessarily mean that they didn't know what they were talking about. They were just making shit up out of thin air. It just means that as they grew as a people, perhaps they realized certain things, see certain things, got spiritual downloads from above, and also influences from other people around them to say, okay, well, this fits. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Does that make it true 100%? Not necessarily, but it probably brings us closer to the truth. And the thing is, we're never going to get as close to it until we all die. Then we'll find out, okay, what's really going on here? Is there a heaven or hell? So I guess my question to you would then be, if there is no heaven or hell from your perspective, where then do we go after our bodies cease to exist?
Okay. So before I answer that one, let me say this. Spiritual download is just your emotions trying to make sense of what's going on in your life and what you've experienced. Because the Hindu have the same spiritual downloads for them that confirm Brahma. The Muslims have the same spiritual downloads that confirm Allah, and so on and so forth with every other religion. So at the end of the day, it's just your own emotional state that's trying to conform to your logical mind. And the other part of your question is the hardest thing for most people to ever say. We don't know. I have no idea what happens when you die. The only thing that I can guarantee that happens when you die is that your body will transmute into another form of energy. So depending upon where you're buried and how you're buried, or for me, it will be, what's the thing? Cremation. So it's going to turn to ash. As far as my consciousness or your soul, if my consciousness stays together, and that's the big if part, does your consciousness even stay together? Will you even be you? You have no idea, because no one has went to any heaven and came back. Went to hell and came back. But in every religion, people claim that they went to the heaven of their belief, or they've seen the previous lives that they lived and they know they're going to be and they believe they're going to be reincarnated. They've had past life experiences. Everybody claims that they've experienced these things in every religion, which doesn't prove anything. It just shows that that's what they believe. And so the mind is so powerful. beyond the fact that we can dream or daydream or night dream and have and create entire universes in our mind. The mind is so powerful that every time when someone's died, your brain drops so much DMT over your brain, which creates hallucinations. Or even when you have a near-death experience, your brain drops a bunch of DMT, which creates hallucinations. And generally, those hallucinations are going to be based on what you've experienced in your life. So if our consciousness does stay together, this is the guess. If it stays together, your mind will create whatever existence you most believe in. And oftentimes, it ain't going to be what you say out your mouth, because most people think that they're not worthy of any heaven.
Ooh.
You know how you got them dark thoughts in the back of your brain that's really what you're thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most people don't experience that. They ain't experiencing that shit that they say out their mouth that sounds pleasing to everybody. They gonna get the hell on the handbasket because most people are filled with shame and guilt and regret. And that's where they're gonna go, into their shame, regret, and their guilt. I don't have those problems, so if I don't on purpose. I make sure that I don't. But you know,
how do you know you don't? That's the thing. How do you know that you don't?
Because I spent decades of self-exploration, diving deep into who I am and what I think and how I feel to make sure that I don't. Because when you walk and it's not about an afterlife, it's not the reason why I did it or why I still do it. But it is the fact that I want to live my life the best way I possibly can. And one of the ways to do that is I have to be happy with who I am. I have to be happy with the life that I've led. And I can't be happy with the life that I led. Like I got a divorce from my kid's mom, right? And for about 6 years, I felt guilty as shit because I wasn't in the house with my children. I felt guilty. I felt depressed. I was ashamed of it. I had broken something that I promised I would not break, which was I grew up with my father living in Florida and I'm living in Atlanta. And I was like, no, I was never going to leave the house of my children because I used to be so angry with my parents for doing that. But for 6 years, I lived with that guilt and that shame. But then I took myself through a process to alleviate that guilt and that shame, you know, both through my meditations, but also through my actions. My actions were I spent a whole hell of a lot of time with my kids, more time than most separated fathers do, to the point where it actually got on their mom's nerve for a little while. But I mean, not in a bad way, not that she got mad or caused problems, but you know, I was there, present. And being present with my children, being in their lives, making sure that they got as much as I could give them. And still to this day, I still do it. My guilt, my shame of that went away because there was nothing for me to be guilty or shamed about. Because I also recognize that if I had stayed in that relationship, I would not have been as good of a father to my children that I ended up being.
I was thinking that. So
even though it's not it's not the greatest way to raise kids, the alternative actually it was actually better than the alternative, which is to stay in that relationship, to be disgruntled, to be unhappy, to be irritable. When I left, I found my peace, found my happiness, and I was able to be a better father to my children.
And would you say that was the same case for the mother of the children as well? She was able to be a better mother, perhaps, as much as you were able to be a better father because of the separation?
Can't answer that. That's up to her.
Okay.
I used to contemplate that, but then I realized me contemplating that would then cause me to possibly go into another spiral of guilt.
Oh, of guilt. Yeah.
So I have to recognize that I cannot determine how she feels, thinks, or what her process, her theories are about herself. That's something she had to find for herself now. So I just looked at what kind of mother is she. She was a great mom, and I'm satisfied with that.
Mm.
You know, I never had to go to her and be like, look, I'm taking my kids because you ain't treating them right. You know, if anything, I used to tell her at least once or twice a year, you're an amazing mom. Like, I would uplift her. From day one, actually, I was uplifting her as a great mother.
Mm.
And it wasn't about my feelings towards her. It was more about making sure that my kids was not living in a household with someone who was depressed and jacked up. Because one of the things I realized that I was making my kids depressed, that through part of that first 6 years with my own depression. So no, I don't have any. If I get some guilt, if I have some guilt right now, it will be because of something that happened in my life right now, and then I fix it. I get rid of it.
And I know you said 20 minutes, so it's like 25, 30 now.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll wrap it up with this and saying that there are some people that I realize that they don't realize how spiritually developed they are. The answer and response you just gave me took a level of emotional intelligence. And it's interesting in one way you say, well, you tell me you're not thinking logically. It's emotional based. And I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But yet it's that lack of emotional development that most of us have that skews our logic or what logic we think we have. Because if it's not every dot and tittle, if it doesn't cross this T or dot this line, then it's not true. But we know that because of the things you just described, you could not have come to that revelation, no pun intended, based on a logical thought process. What you went through was a spiritual process. And the way you described how most people who talk about God and God is great and I'm going to be in heaven, they're going to church, they're doing all the right things on the surface. I mean, Jesus also talks about that, right? You know, you, Lord, you know, I did all these things in your name, yada, yada. But, you know, you get to heaven or you get to this place after death, it's like, well, I never knew you. The way you describe that, a lot of Christians don't believe themselves to be in that position. Like you said, they have a lot of dark thoughts, feelings, desires. Maybe they feel some type of way about a homosexual, but they'll say with their mouths, we love you. But inwardly, things are seething within them that you can sense it, but you can't say, what? I don't think you really love them. You're saying it because the Bible is telling you to love them, which is not love, is it? It's your logical process. Logically, it makes sense. I'm supposed to love people that I don't necessarily agree with. But in reality, a lot of them don't even love themselves. And so you're right. They will end up in a place that is the antithesis of where they believe they themselves will go. But it's people like you that I meet, which I am more interested in listening to and talking to, that are oftentimes more spiritually sound and developed than the Christians who practice the things that they claim to practice or believe what they believe. So it's just odd how it's kind of like topsy-turvy. You would think that they would have a lack of faith because of their lack of emotional and spiritual development. But then it's interesting to me how you have zero faith and you have a high emotional and spiritual development. Just by listening to you talk, it's like, whoa. And I've talked to guys your age who are Christians who don't have that depth, that weight to them, that this is what I've been through. This is why I've come to believe what I believe. But yet you speak from a very spiritual and emotional perspective. And it's like, huh. And I think you might be pleasantly surprised at where, okay, there's no heaven and hell. Yeah, I don't know. But you would be a better position of getting to a heaven than someone who believes that they will get there based on whatever they think they're doing right or however they think they're supposed to treat people, but they don't truly feel that way. You know, you're saying all these pleasantries. You're honest. Honesty and trust. Your honesty is the foundation for even getting to a place that there is a heaven. Because if God is honest and he's true, then we're supposed to mimic him and his likeness. Then you will have a much more better chance of getting to a place you don't even believe exists than someone who believes it exists, but denies all the feelings and emotions and revelations that you've had in your life. So I just want to leave you with that. I like you. I mean, I know I can learn a lot more from you. You've had a lot more life experience. I'm still trying to get to Israel. I don't claim to be a Christian at all. Christians don't claim to be a Christian either, which is kind of disheartening because of the things I'm talking about with you. How could you say this about an atheist? What do you mean he doesn't believe?
Yeah.
And so they'll get on me for talking about you this way. I'm thinking, right, that's not a loving thing to say. That's an example of what you just talked about, that anger and within them. It's like, is this something that Jesus would say or do to someone who is atheist or who's a homosexual or who is a woman or who is a this or who's a that, who doesn't believe, who's a Muslim, whatever? But they believe they're righteous in the way they think because of their dogmatic belief in the scripture. So it's not a bad thing that you're not, maybe it's best that you came out of it. Kind of like a clean slate. I'm an atheist. Boom, clear and done. And now you're kind of like allowing things to build on top of that. Well, we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, I'm going to work on myself, which a lot of Christians don't do. I'm going to build my own spiritual and emotional development, which a lot of Christians don't do. And I'm going to challenge myself because you had to challenge yourself to get to the place that you are right now. And that's difficult. A lot of no, I know what I know. I believe what I believe. I read it. It's done. It's sealed and delivered. I don't need to hear nothing else. I can't tolerate. You're like, hey, this is where I'm at right now. And I believe when Jesus said, and I love everyone knows that famous quote where he says, come to me as a little child. Where you are now, a little child is what? Clean slate. They don't have any preconceived notions of heaven or hell or God or the devil or none of these other how they perceive. They're just like feeling how they feel. They're allowing themselves to move through life, to treat people well, and then they treat themselves well. And then that's why I think that a lot of people miss it. That comes with me as a child aspect. We get in our head about that. But that clean slate is what every child has. None of us came into this world believing one thing or another.
That's
I
right.
came here having, I see something, or I see a spirit, or I see this. And you have to have that beaten out of you. You have to have the politics of religion dissuade you from going closer to God. But I think in your case, and I just leave it on this final, it's very different. You're more spiritual than you don't know that you are, but you are. And I know someone else that's like that who I met in Brazil. She was very, very, very spiritual, but I'm agnostic, is what she said. I'm agnostic. Okay.
Mhm.
You're more evolved spiritually than you even realize you are. It's kind of like someone who doesn't know they're born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Oh, you're rich, but you don't know how rich you are. That's the way I see you.
All right.
So with that being said, I appreciate you having me on, and I will yield the floor for other people to speak because I'm curious to hear what they have to say as well.
All right. Appreciate you, Joseph. Yeah, I didn't respond because that would have continued on, but I don't consider myself spiritual. I don't think I'm spiritual at all. But I respect what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But it's just, what's the term they use? Mindfulness. You just want to be mindful of who you are. And the thing about it, people don't. Religion causes people to not be honest with themselves, not be honest with the parts of them that don't conform to society. Like, you have almost everyone on, I will bet everyone on here, you got something about you that does not conform to society. But religion causes you to think that it's a bad thing. It may not be a bad thing. It may be great, but you're too afraid to be yourself. As long as you ain't hurting nobody else. Good afternoon, sir. This might be my last one for today. I can't. IG Grit, IG Garrett, IG Garrett. Are you there? Hello?
I've been watching you on YouTube for a long, long time.
I appreciate it.
I'm just here to say I appreciate your work, man. And I know you might not think what your brother was saying earlier about the spirituality, but you got to understand, humanism is a sort of spirituality. Reconstructing the reality of our consciousness, how we feel, our empathy, our our human traits, things that humanize us instead of animalize us or make us more tribal. These things are of a spiritual nature. And that's why I believe when the brother was saying a kind of a spiritual aspect to it, it is true. Because looking at the contemporary ideologies of religion and how they relate to individual life, that is problematic for us on a day-to-day basis. And it has been problematic for hundreds of years. Right? So these things I think are things that even I am Christian, even though I watch your channel, I do watch your channel because you get some good things. I ain't gonna hold you. But I think observing the ideology behind it and thinking about how these paradoxes come up within religion can help push us forward to a better place as religious people. And therefore, from a day-to-day basis and even on an individual basis, for us as a group, it would be better for us to adapt or even debate those who do not have the same mindset as us or the same religion as us, to therefore find how well-rounded we can become, not only as religious theists, but as people.
I'm with you. What should I call you?
My name is Cigarettes after Snakes are here, but my name is Chad.
Chuck?
No, Chad.
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 Oh, Chad.
Yeah.
All right, Chad. Where you from?
I was born in America, but I'm in Jamaica currently. I've been
Okay.
raised all my life
I'm with you. I just asked because we're getting a lot of today. But I understand what you're saying. Can you mute yours for right now so I won't get that echo? All right. So I understand what you're saying. And here's the thing. The reason why I reject that is not because of truth or untruth, as far as me being spiritual in that sense, and how we categorize spirituality. And I understand humanism can be looked upon as a spirituality. I only reject it because I am safeguarding myself from creating another religion, so to speak, or creating a spiritual path that people start to follow. Yeah, I want everybody to look deep within themselves and deal with themselves and love themselves and, live their lives exactly however they choose to live their life without all that guilt and shit. But I do not want to become a spiritual leader. And that is I'm being honest with you. I can agree that what I exude can be viewed as spirituality. I just don't want to be a spiritual leader. So I will, and that's just me right now. I may change my mind in 5 years, 10 years, or tomorrow, right? But for now, I'm going to reject that because I don't want to be anybody's spiritual leader. So I appreciate you, and you can come back on now, but I appreciate you.
I understand that maybe you have a adverse look towards becoming a spiritual leader. But one must honestly admit to somebody who is also someone who created a path. Every philosophical person or every religious alternative theist is also somebody who created a path. I believe there's many different paths in the world, many different outlooks and viewpoints. But even if you don't want to say be a leader, right? Yeah, but that's another path. Because for some who say the moment you agree with me and no longer seek your own inner understanding is the moment you have lost your own path. So you're someone who wishes to guide others in their own growth, but not necessarily be the one to say, be over them to say, I am the one guiding you in my growth.
Exactly.
So you're I would say a pathfinder, but a separatist, right?
Yeah.
So
find your own damn path.
It's interesting, but at the same time, for me personally, I must acknowledge another path seeker, right? It's as simple as that. For someone who is also seeking a path or creating my own path, I must acknowledge another pathfinder. And as someone who I see, out here, it's dangerous doing what you're doing because you already know the cultural hate that's behind the deconstructing of these structures that have been around. You know what I mean? So I understand why you also adverse look at it from that way as well.
Yeah.
So even though you don't want to say it's spiritual, my friend, you know what I mean? It does have a certain aspect of spirituality to it. Whenever you look at how, if you can, let's look at it this way. If someone is religious, right? That's a spiritual thought practice, and a spiritual practice for themselves. But if you have someone deconstructing it and also adding points of humanism and their own viewpoints as to break open the shell of which they were trapped in by others, other dogma, and other religious construction, it's also showing them another spiritual aspect within your own spirituality. It's also giving them a wider path that they can strive towards, not only within the spiritual aspect that they practice, but also within themselves. So they're not separate in the way they live. So if I'm Christian and you're also breaking down the religious dogma and also the paradoxes within the religion itself, I can now seek an understanding not only with myself but understanding of the higher power which I serve. Right? So that it's an interesting, I would say, interesting dilemma for us to be navigating through. It's both beneficial but absolutely hated by those who are in the component doctrine.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And I appreciate you, man. Let me knock out a couple more people so I can get the hell off here. I gotta stay. All right.
No problem. It's been great speaking
All
with
right.
you, man.
Great speaking with you too. Thanks, Chad. Call me a mentee. I wonder what happened to you. Y'all trying to take me to the 4-hour mark.
Sorry.
A mentee. Are you in the halls?
Yeah, sorry. So
You keep mute. Your mic is muted right now. I don't know.
yeah, sorry. So I don't want to be on it for too long.
All right.
But, first of all, I can see that you have the Hamza hand or the third eye hand. So you're quite intricate on symbols or, metaphysics or knowledge, or just, you have an understanding on energy or protection or, mechanism settings or defense, because that's what the third eye hand signifies, protection or ability. So I can see that you're quite knowledgeable. When we're looking at the Bible, sorry.
Where'd you go? You muted yourself again.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so when we're looking at the Bible, it goes into a construct as, so when you go on ChatGPT on the internet, it says that modern Homo sapiens arrived and descended from Africa, right? And even, America is ancient as well. We can also call that a motherland, but that's beyond the point, right? So clearly, it says on the internet, or it's out there, that everyone came from these motherlands of Africa. So now that we've come into this understanding, the Bible is a creation story of what happened on earth. Everything in the Bible happened on earth, right? Now it goes back to Cush or Mitzrayim or Israel or Canaan or the Levant or Ham, Shem, and Japheth, right? So in the Hebrew version, it says, let us make man in our image. Now the us was, it goes to watchers or a pantheon, or it goes to the Elohim, the ones that were created by Al or higher deity. So my point is these are ancient stories that were put into Europeans' hands, and it ended up in the wrong lens or perspectives, right? So it goes to the oldest language on this earth is hieroglyphics. Then it goes to cuneiform, Akkadian, Sumerian, Mesopotamian writing. Then it goes to Aramaic. Then it goes to Arabic or Hebrew, and then Hebrew Aramaic. And then it goes to Hebrew Aramaic first, then Hebrew, then Latin, then Greek, and then English writing. The reason why I'm saying this is because language has given us a limitation. Language has given us an urgency or an emergence onto basically be limited and even be contradicted towards ourselves. So when because these stories were received in purified understanding or understanding, over time, when you change these words or these stories, the characters change, the change, the language change, the people change, the identity change, the stories change, and even the women change over time, right? Hence the reason why they taken away the Trinity, the true Trinity, you know, the Mother, the Father, and the Son. And everyone now thinks that the Son is the first individual at the start of Genesis 1:1. But if people really understood the English translations, because English is a language for business, the only reason why we have these stories are embedded and encoded in our heads is because we have been absorbed and abstracted into these stories, so that these stories stay with us and embed towards our head. So half the world thinks that this deity, Christ or Jesus, is God, but this deity, Christ, gets mentioned only the first book of Matthew, right? So the presence of this being that everyone's claiming to be God is already contradicted, because his first presence is already in Matthew, which means that there's beings or people that came before this deity that everyone's claiming to be the all-in-all creator, which means that, you know, this is all just subjected now. No one's really reading these things properly, because it goes back to all-in-all stories of ancient stories, going back to, someone said Christ's consciousness. Yes, yeah, consciousness meaning...
Stay with you. Like I'm trying to get to your point. Don't read what they're writing, because you're a little all over the place right now.
So just what I was saying. So of course Christ was created by Mary. Mary is the one that was anointed to hold this vessel, and this arrival or presence starts in Matthew 1:1. Jesus Christ is mentioned in Matthew 1:1. That's the first presence he's mentioned. Now in Genesis means a genealogy story, or the genealogy of Noah. Now, in the genealogy of Noah, he has three triplets or sons. These are all melanated, negroid, copper-toned, ancient, purified sons, just like me and you, my daily sir, right? Right? These are melanated, copper-toned individuals, right? Genesis 9:19, it says this whole world was populated with one family, right? And then Genesis 9-25, you know, punishment started to happen. Now, the Genesis is a creation story because it explains how things were scattered and confused, right? So now we have to go to the fact that how Elion versus Yahweh, yeah, we get it. Okay. Not everyone knows that, because Yahweh is the one that confused the languages. But if you go back in the story, the word Yahweh goes to Elohim, and the word Elohim goes to a pantheon. So now it goes to a pantheon. There's many different type of Yahwehs. There's female Yahwehs. There's male Yahwehs. Right. This is what this is in the Masonic, the Judaism teachings as well. They understand that the Elohim are different type of embodiments or beings that interacted with Earth within these stories. This is why this story is the great mystery, right? Because it's talking about angels, it's talking about this, it's talking about mermaids, it's talking about giants on the earth, right? Picturing it that this all happened on Earth, right? Which means that these are all stories are rhetorical.
I need you to land the plane, man. You kind of all over the place, here, and there's a lot of parts that I would have interjected, but I know you were waiting for a long time, so I was, giving you some time. But so are you a believer in the stories of the Bible?
First of all, the word belief has L-I-E in there. The English language is a bastardized language, so you have to understand what type of context you're colorating on or declaring on. I don't believe I know I know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I know my schedule. I know my structure. I know what I'm reading, right? So I've studied these things to understand that these stories go beyond English intellect. They go beyond English language. Because if the Most High is real, he never put it in English, European.
Okay, so is he real?
Of course, because these stories are real. They happen on Earth.
So you think that So you think that Noah's flood is a real story?
When it goes to Noah's flood, you have to understand it only taken out a part of Earth. It didn't go to the whole Earth. So Noah's flood is misunderstood. And even in the book, we should realize that there's multiple deities, because one deity is talking to Noah saying that there's a flood, and then one deity saying that I'm going to send the flood, and then also my next deity saying I'm going to confuse the languages. So these go back to the Elohim Anunnaki creation stories, going back to Mesopotamia,
right,
the Iraq, going back to ancient Egypt, or the Neteru, Meduneta.
So okay, you're so back to my question. Do you think that Noah's flood happened?
It happened, but it never happened from the way how they told us.
All right, so you don't think that everybody on the planet is related to Noah and his 3 sons?
That's correct, but it's confusion, because it goes back to the grandsons. It's nothing to do with Noah. It goes back to Noah's grandsons.
Right. So are you saying that we all come from Noah's children?
Technically, yeah.
Impossibility.
Yes.
That's a virtual impossibility. It's one. It's a biological. One. It's a biological.
In the colonizer's book, I already know what this is about. I don't.
It's an impossibility. Oh, he disconnected. But it's an impossibility for. Okay, so no disrespect to Amenti, but you're mixing in a lot of Christology with the you're Billy Carson this thing, really. You're doing a Billy Carson, where you're mixing in Christianity with the Sumerian Anunnaki story. It's a biological impossibility for all of humanity that is alive today to have come from 3 couples. There's not enough genetic diversity in order for that to happen. You said that it was just a localized thing. So would it be a localized thing? Then of course all the other people who were around the world would have been surviving. So then therefore, if it's a localized flood, which the word Eretz can mean a localized area when they describe the world in the Noah's flood story, then the Peruvian people were still being existing, the Minoans were still around, the Chinese were still around, all these people were still around during that time. And if you accept that it was a localized flood, then all those people still would have had babies and created their and continued on in their civilization. So we cannot have come from the 3 couples that was on the boat in with Noah and his wife, which then makes the Noah story invalid. Can't be a true story at all. But you got to be mindful, all that Anunnaki stuff is also them explaining how things came to be. And written 3,000 years after this event supposedly happened. I was trying to bring you up, Keels. Let's try it again. Kales.
Hey.
Hey, Kales.
Hello, Deconstruct. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Your picture threw me off. I was expecting a dude.
Yeah. I like to be unpredictable.
I see.
It adds to it. I did agree with what you said there about there's not enough genetic makeup, so I do agree with that. I think not everyone is from the same. Maybe I'm biased, and I would say, yeah, okay, people, we come from the true, but I don't want to expand on that right now. But so no one is in heaven or hell, neither exists. I honestly think we're all in hell right now.
But current way of the world, yeah, it's kind of hellish right now.
This earth is hell. I don't believe there's anything worse than this earth. reason being is, how can there be good coinciding with such evil? You know, how can we live in a society that, even though, you know, on surface level it looks so great, but that half of these elites are doing disgusting things? So, you know, I don't think there is anything worse than truthfully.
Yeah. I mean,
this is how
the thing about our life and our civilizations right now is that if you can go into any city, town, hamlet, and you will find that there are some people who are living what looks to be a heavenly life, and there are other people who are living a hellish life, and there's 1,000 different variations in between, right? Like, what city are you in?
So I'm from the UK.
All right, so like if I went to London,
yeah,
actually, let's see, where the hell was I? When I was walking around Piccadilly Circus, hell, I was in heaven. It was great. And when I was, you know, when I would go to the embassy parties, it was great, heaven. But then I would go into some of the more hoodish areas, more impoverished areas, and those people, they were going through hell. You know, not enough food, working 12 hours a day kind of situations, not having enough money, you know, crime all around them. Those people are going through hell. So you can find that state of being in every place. But, you know, so when you say that it can't exist together, when we look at heaven and hell as a state of mind, then it can't exist together in one person. But as a society, we can see it. We can see people living in hell. I would imagine the people in Greenland right now feel like they're living in hell.
Totally agree. That's literally how I see it as well. And like, I guess I believe in what the class is Gnosticism, which is like the early Christianity that establishes that the first half of the Bible, the Old Testament, was run by a demiurge god. So, you know, the demiurge god is what's responsible for this earth, which is why I believe it is hell. I don't think anything gets worse than this place.
Yes.
But yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I don't believe there's any such thing as heaven. Yeah, you can be in the mind state of heaven, but at the same time, I don't think there's anything that's external other than we all go back to our source once we've learned enough lessons of this world. Then yeah, we obviously ascend to the next place. But I don't believe it's the construct that we've been told throughout the books, in terms of, you know, because there's so many different layers to this as well. I think in the Quran it mentions there's 7 heavens. Right. In the Bible it doesn't mention the number of heavens, but it does mention that there's a new earth and a new Jerusalem, and there's also paradise, which is separate from heaven. So yeah, I don't believe it's what they tell us. No,
I don't at all. And if our consciousness does stay together and we ascend or descend to a different state of being, I don't think that any place can be heaven or hell in that sense, because although, let's say you ascend to a higher plane of existence, right? You're still existing within the framework of our matter universe, even though it may be on a different mental level. Even at that level, there is still going to be things that are not perfect. People have this image in their mind that life becomes perfect when you leave and you go into some heaven. But in order for that to happen, especially according to the Bible, you would have to be mind wiped of all your memories and all your associations. Because like I have a cousin that live in London. I got an uncle who lives in Banbury. Now, my uncle in Banbury, if I was Christian, he going to hell, right? So how can I be in heaven and know that my uncle is in hell and be happy and not have sorrow? So you would have to make me into some mindless zombie thing for me to be in heaven and be happy.
But this is the thing. This is exactly why it's technically the Bible itself. It's unfortunate, but it's part of the whole trap, isn't it? I believe that we're literally in the soul trap right now. We were never supposed to be separate from our true God, but we are, and this is the material world that we're in. And that same, I'm going to say, entity or demiurge God is responsible for the Torah, for the Bible, and for the Quran. So, you know, once we exceed, and it's like what you said, like in the Bible, that, you know, you have to have your memory wiped. This is part of the trap. That is part of the trap. Reincarnation back to the same place again is the soul trap. So yeah, I believe in there's truths in all books, but it's also in the books that they don't talk about. So like the missing books, for example, like Book of Enoch, Book of Mary, Magdalene, all these missing books that they purposely also didn't allow in the Bible. There's also truth in those things, and it kind of recognizes there's a clear distinction. So that's why I kind of believe more in the spirituality side of things, but I would recognize myself more in touch with the Gnostics.
Right.
Which are the early Christians who made that distinction. A lot of them were killed off, but, you know, the truth will always prevail and remain.
Yeah.
So I think right now we're in an awakening state, and it's nice to finally see that, you know, there's more of us that think like this.
I think there's another book that I think you like. I'm pretty sure you've already read the Gospel of Thomas.
Oh, yeah, I read Thomas recently.
But
I mean, yeah, that's really interesting.
There's a book that I always recommend to people of who think like you do and somewhat like I do. It's called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill.
Okay, yeah.
He in that book he talks about how the devil is the negative portion of your brain and God is the positive portions of your brain. And it's truly finding a balance between the two. And one of those ways of doing that is by understanding that you have to control your mind and control your emotions, especially controlling your emotions, which actually follows a Gnostic, Buddhist, Taoist kind of mentality of being able to maintain self-control in order for you to truly see life and things as they really are, not what you want them to be or what others have determined for them to be. And then in that way, you govern yourself instead of all these outside forces governing you. So that's a good book.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm going to read into it for sure. What's it called again, if you don't mind?
Outwitting the Devil.
Outwitting the Devil. Okay.
By Napoleon.
That for sure.
Yeah, Napoleon Hill. He wrote it in 1938, but it didn't get published in 2001.
Interesting. There's probably good reasons why.
Yeah, Christian World would have kicked his ass back then if he'd have put that book out.
Have you heard of this man recently called Chris Bledsoe as well? He's recently been so I think he's like an American man who he was part of the church, but he then said he no longer really relates to that, and he's been speaking about, you know, that the government, especially like in the US, they need to be honest about what's going to happen for this year. He's been getting like a lot of awakening, and he's recently wrote a book, and he's been talking about like orbs and the angels and these things that I think are again part of the missing books. Have a look into what he's been saying. It's really interesting.
What's his name again?
He just basically said Chris Bledsoe.
Chris Bledsoe. Okay.
Yeah, he's very interesting, and yeah, I think he's been talking about certain things for so long, but they're finally getting out now. So, and he basically recognizes that there's different entities in this world. It isn't just the humans. There is other entities at play. But I do want to be honest, and I'm not being biased, but I am going to say I do think us BLK people are closer to the truth, and we are the truth, but we've had our history wiped for a certain reason, but you know, we are starting to awaken now, so thank God for that. And who knows what that looks like, but I think some of these westernized countries, for example, even the UK, their time is up, and I think there's a shift, and it's definitely playing out this year, and that's just USA and the UK, like they're gonna have to crash because what they've done is really bad.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting year. But I agree. I can see some agreement in that. I do think we need to that. I don't like to put closeness to truth based on any particular group of people, because when I look at the whole of, especially, and it always goes back to Africa in most points, when I look at the whole of it, the overwhelming majority of Africa has absolutely nothing to do with any of the religions from the Levant and Mesopotamia. That is a small section of people that had to do with that. And if it wasn't for the Roman Empire, that religion, the Abrahamic religions would have died out a long time ago. But it is them who kept it alive. And although you can see elements of North African traditional religions, their influence on it, the overwhelming majority of sub-Saharan African have absolutely nothing to do with those religions, those gods. So it wouldn't be that, none of that wouldn't be a truth to me, because yeah, my ancestors, they worship Olorun and Oshun and Shango, and a little bit of them worship the Namu, but so they have no connection. So, and when I look at that, it reminds me that I have no connection to it, that it means nothing to me. I have no lineage from anywhere in that Mediterranean area. The only.
Do you think that's because we've been purposely made? We've purposely had our history erased.
Well, I mean, some of the history, I mean, a lot of history has been erased or been retold in a negative way. But the oral traditions of like West Africa, we still know them. We still have them. They're still available. They didn't carve it or write it in the same way that desert dwelling people did. But those histories are still there. We just were never taught it. So the internet has the internet has allowed for more people to be able to have access to that information. But the information has always been there. Right? We just have to get out of the mindset that the Levant and that Mediterranean area is the beacon of civilization, and is where God did all his work and all this sorts of thing. Because during all that time, the Chinese had their gods, the Mesoamericans had their gods, and everybody was doing their own thing. And then, of course, they came over and conquered, and they tried to eradicate that information. But a lot of it is still there, and is so different from their religion. You know, so even the Black people who were in the Levant when it all, 1,000 years, well, about 2,000 to 3,500 years ago, who was talking about this stuff, they were talking about it based on their perspective. My Native American ancestors, they didn't know nothing about what those people were talking about. They had some similarities, but for the most part, they were like, I don't know them. This is our God. These are the sky people. We worship the sky people and the spirits and the trees and all this stuff. So they wouldn't have that connection. So I don't draw those conclusions that we would have a deeper knowledge of it or something or true. I think as far as that's concerned, those who just recognize that what they call spirit, the earth has a spirit, the trees have a spirit, they were closer to an understanding of everything has energy. And
exactly,
energy is alive. Energy has life, and trying to connect to that energy is the closest to truth that will ever come. But
it's true. The only reason I probably maybe I put favor on us, but maybe I would just say that as BRK people, we're naturally more in tune to this. That's where I was coming from more than anything.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Like just more naturally.
Yeah,
I can get with you on that one. But I'm gonna get this last person, then I gotta get off here because I have some studying to do. And I'm 30.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you raising me onto the panel, and I'll be following you from now on.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
All right. You have a great day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye. We all over the world today. South Africa, Caribbean, England, or the UK. Oh Lord, this is the last person. The last person.
What's happening? Why we got an old Lord and Ninja? Why we gotta go to old Lord and all that? Then what's happening? Doc, we happy Gregorian, happy Gregorian calendar New Year.
Happy Gregorian, exactly.
what you call it? Yeah, I mean, of course, this subject ain't gonna be too long. Heaven and hell to me is the checks and balances. I've always pointed out to where over the last 10 years, when I got to deconstruction at the beginning, I started to reading about heaven, and I was like, streets are paved with gold, fences built with jasper. I said, that sounds very fucking worldly to me. It sounds like things that I would want on this earth. Why would a spirit still crave a mansion? So I think the reason why heaven and hell is reinforced because the institution of the ideal mimics what we do in real life. Kind of like the whole reason why people do believe in the utility. My philosophy is God is real, not because there's some fucking sky daddy. No, the utility of it, the institution of it's real. And this is why I think people cannot disconnect and do also connect from it. And heaven and hell, in my opinion, has always been states of mind. Because it
Mhm.
depends on your perspective, what you experience in the world at that time. At time when Hurricane Katrina hit, you heard me, bitch. I felt like I was in hell. I mean, I felt like I was in hell. My world was ending, and literally it was.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So there are different moments that happen in everyone's life, regardless of deification or not, that you will experience nirvana and you will feel, extreme nirvana and extreme despair. One thing that kills me too, that I don't let Christians or Abrahamic beliefs people be like, I don't have a heaven or hell to put you in. Don't let them say that shit to you because that leaves them without accountability. Yes, you do have a heaven or hell to put me in. You have a
Mhm.
hell to put me in because how you're going to institute your way of living in my politics and my government. And if I don't follow this, you are therefore going to think. If you think that my soul is going to be damned, there's no way you can treat my emotions in my body right. There's no way. So yes, people do have a hell to put you in. You think children that's experiencing starvation and actual abuse and all that, they are experiencing hell because of someone's actions. So that's one of the biggest cop outs. Yes, you do have a hell to put people in because your actions don't just affect you. So that's all I kind of want to say to that. And other than that, baby, how you been doing?
I've been pretty good. Took a little hiatus for
Mm-hmm.
because we was moving and traveling, so took a little hiatus. Now I'm recharged, ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Finally
My
got
home. Mm-hmm.
99% of this house together, so
That's
just got
excellent.
So I'm that's why y'all haven't heard from me for a couple of weeks as far as lives are concerned.
Yeah, I kind of figured we weren't gonna hear from you. You did say he was moving, so I said he gonna probably need some time. Matter of fact, a good friend of mine who's like a sister who's half Black American and half Guyanese, South America. She just left my apartment. She was visiting me for her birthday, which was yesterday, and out here in Atlanta. So yeah, she thinking about coming to move back down here. Look, I'm about to convert a bunch of San Antonians to Atlanta.
Oh, she live in San Antonio.
Yeah.
Oh,
But she's a believer, but she happens to still be a believer. You know what I'm saying? That's why earlier I was on the line. I didn't want to get on here and I didn't want to
no,
play it and all that
I
because
understand.
she don't push me and I don't push her. We don't let that get in the way. Of our relationship.
And that's good.
Yeah, we don't let that get in the way. I tell her all my church friends, I said, look, you better spend time with me now, because on Judgment Day, bitch, we are not going the same place, because I'm not going nowhere with you. I tell her all the time, I said, I love you, girl, but I'm not going to that heaven with you. You can have all that.
Nah, I'm with you. If the biblical version of heaven and hell is reality, I would not want to be in their heaven to save, not even to save my
Mm-mm,
soul, because that
mm-mm,
is some bullshit, slavery
mm-mm,
bullshit that I would not want to be a part of. And
mm-mm.
if this God is foolish enough to let me come up there with my mind, it's gonna be another revolution.
Well, that's why
Yeah.
he has to. That's why you lose your will. That's why your mind is gonna be holy, holy, because the person who wrote the shit understood that. They put that in for checks and balances.
Yeah, and it definitely would be that. So you have to lose all my mind, because you ain't gonna have my grandfather down in hell burning, and I'm supposed to sit up there and accept your bullshit, because I'm pretty sure that Joker didn't make it. He ain't gonna make it. So that's the bullshit. So we gonna have a revolt up and down. I'm gonna free all the people out of hell. We ain't doing that bullshit.
Okay. Okay. Shit. Even when I was, engaging into shamanism and Reiki work and everything, even coming out of Christianity, when my father transitioned, I tell people all the time, I said, even though that could have been emotionalism, but what I felt and saw when my father left had absolutely nothing to do with no sky daddy. Like, it was more cosmic and universal. It was things and colors that I can't exactly describe. What I did see, like in my vision, it had nothing. It had literally absolutely nothing. When I felt my father's transition, it had absolutely, from my opinion, I don't know if this is the cat's me out. I ain't saying this is no God, but what I felt from my spiritual practices and what we've engaged in outside of Christianity, it was absolutely nothing to do. I mean, why would you want to go to the hell? And it seems to me that's a cop out too. And I'm gonna just say that. I know I said I was gonna be quiet. I don't get how people. You understand that's why people keep doing the terrible things they do on this life. If the murderous Barabbas ass could be on the cross, that tells the PDF file, the rapist, the murderer, that gives them a conscious, subconscious assurance. Well, I can do all of these terrible things in this life and just say a spell or a sinner's prayer or Romans 10 and 1, whatever. And that's why people keep doing the terrible things they do. That's what's wrong with these bitches now. You think you can say and do what you want to do, and that's why you keep doing it. That's why the writer who pretended to be Jesus said you need to be forgiving your brother 7 times 7, because they know ninjas ain't shit. They know he knew that a human nature is gonna require you some type of forgiveness. Why would you want to go to a heaven or to a God that's gonna forgive Hitler? Why are you wanting to go to a heaven with all of these people who've done these terrible things? And you're telling me all they gotta do is say a spell? Heaven gonna be. I'd rather would do, which I'm not going anywhere. But hell, send me to hell for 500, Alex. At least those are some honest hoes instead of you deceptive hoes sitting in heaven. Send me to hell. Send me to hell. At least they honest. Because at least they were honest. You got old deceptive hoes. You got spiritually dissonant bitches. You got morally bankrupt hoes up there. You got cognitive dissonant hoes up there. You know what I'm saying? You got psychosis hoes up there. I don't want to spend eternity. And with all that, brother, I'm gonna let y'all go. I'm definitely gonna be listening to you this week because they got a ninja working doubles for the rest of the week. I want to make up for my money for being off for these 3 days. So I'll holler at you later.
All right. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
All right. And IG wonder why when he get on, I'll be like, oh. But you're right. And for all the black people, y'all know Jeffrey Dahmer. They say he had a convicted conversion before he died. He might want to take a nibble out of you if you make it to heaven with Jeffrey Dahmer. I almost said that while IG was on here, but I know he would have went all off with that one. So I just kept it to myself. Kept it to myself until he was gone so that he can't say a whole. But anyway, good people. It's been a splendid afternoon, way longer, because I got some reading to do today. Well, I'm gonna have some reading to do every day for the next 3 weeks or so. So I gotta get off here. It was supposed to be 3 hours, but here we are at 3 hours and 48 minutes. So I appreciate everybody for being here today. We go live Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I'll be back here tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, give or take a few minutes. So I look forward to everybody being here tomorrow. Thank you very, very much for all your support, those who support the channel through financial gifts and whatnot. I thank you for that through the fan clubs, the gifts, and people gave me gifts on TikTok that I forgot to thank them for, and super chats and so on and so forth. So y'all have a great day, and always remember that we have to free ourselves to be ourselves, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations, and hasta la vista, hasta mañana, however they say it.